I'd like to call the meeting to order. Frank, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Frank.
Yes, sir.
Adoption of agenda. Any changes?
There are no changes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the agenda as presented and recommended for August the 13th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item 2, call to the public. I have no sheets in front of me, so we will skip that. 3, governing board updates. Charlotte?
I have no updates today.
Hector?
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Frank?
I'd just like to congratulate Mr. Kramer and his teaching staff for their hard work, and they proved that they can be done. Thank you, Joe. Keep going.
Thank you. Marcy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing I attended the jump back activity. And for us having this jump back activity on the first year, it was such a well-organized activity. It was nice to see that the superintendent was there, made himself visible. I noticed all the interactions that he had with parents that were there and students and all of the volunteers, the numerous volunteers that were there also. And I want to also compliment Mrs. Holguin, Dr. Romero, Dr. Alcaraz, Mrs. Vasquez, and Mrs. Weldon, because I thought that your presence there at the activity was very well. I know there's an activity there, but the only thing I'm going to say to summarize everything was it was very nice. As I was walking into the gymnasium, I noticed one parent walking out with her daughter, and the daughter had the backpack full of various materials, and she grabbed it in front of her chest, and like she didn't want to let it go. And I heard the mother telling the daughter as they were leaving, "Did you like the activity?" She says, "It was nice. I really enjoyed." And that to me was the evaluation of all that would happen that morning. Considering that it didn't open till 7 o'clock and kids and parents were in line in 6:15, that said a lot for everything there. So congratulations, Superintendent Zimmerman. I also attended a webinar on Tuesday, July the 31st on Elementary and Secondary Schools Act, which is the new name for the No Child Left Behind. It talked about the waivers that are being granted to the state of Arizona, which is the elimination of the adequate yearly progress now. That's been eliminated as a requirement. The college and career ready standards, which they're going to be ambitious, but achievable annual measurable objectives, which is good. And one of the things that I liked about the webinar, that the evaluations are now going to be done on quartiles. And this is something I thought about Mrs. Kathy Scott when she was the head of the accreditation program at Nogales High School, where we had to approve for the students' achievement. At that time, they broke it down into quartiles, and 12 years later, they're doing what Kathy Scott led at the high school for accreditation. And they also talked about priority and focus schools, which is a big difference now on how you look at schools now, on how they're going to be rated to get help and how they're going to be rated for achievement. And the thing that I didn't understand during the webinar, maybe later on you can give me an explanation, the Title I Continuous Improvement Plan. I just didn't understand what that was. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Item 4, Superintendent's Report. Steve?
We'll take item A, which is the jump start back to school recognition. This is really important. Thank you, Dr. Verona, for leading into that, because what we really thought we needed to do, since we had 40 plus agencies that were there. I'd like to bring up Dr. Utney, and I'd like to I don't think that Alfredo, I always catch him off guard, but I'd like him to come up too, because these are members that were part of the committee, and Arthur Espinoza. And what I want to do is we have certificates, and we sent out a thank you letter, and we also sent out an invitation to attend the board meeting because we felt that it was important. We had over 500 students, and I don't know, do we have the actual disc for the pictures that took place in that event? Can we turn that on? Or are we going to mess things up for Greta? It's okay, you'll be able to get to it? Yeah. Okay. We have all these technology people here, so you're safe if I can't find it. But we want to just show you some pictures, and while you're looking at them, we had 500 students that took part in the event, but more importantly, after the event, there's individuals who got those golden tickets that did not show up for one reason or another, but we also extended an invitation that they could come here to the district office and to student services and pick those things up. But months and months, right, Arthur? Months and months of planning, and it was just awesome. Hi. Thank you, Juan, our mentor. That was beautiful. So as you saw the logos, which was really important during the event to post out there, just to recognize all the agencies that really just stepped up, came forward. Special thanks to the committee who also worked for several months just putting this thing together. And what I like to do is we put certificates for these individuals. We will have Arthur and John and Alfredo assist in that. We have some folks who couldn't make it, but we will make sure that we deliver their certificate to them. So, John?
The Nogales Unified School District Number 1 Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to the following agencies and individuals for their participation in the first annual Jump Back to School event, July 21st, 2012. Linkages. H2O Cold Storage. Lavanderia y Tinteria Moderno. The Nogales Hall of Fame. The Boys and Girls Club of Santa Cruz County. Irene Molera. Santa Cruz County Attorney's Office. Santa Cruz County School Superintendent's Office. Well, and he's not wrong in that. He says she's the boss. And, you know, there was always that question, do you want to talk to the boss or do you want to talk to the person that knows what's going on around here? And she knew what was going on. Held the meetings together, got all the notes put together, set the meetings. Thank you. Santa Cruz Community Action Coalition. Santa Fe Ranch. Santa Cruz Institute of Cosmetology. Pinal Hispanic Council. Nogales Police Officers Association. Payless Shoe Source. Nogales Fire Department. Nogales Police Department. And our chairperson, Nogales Community Food Bank. Nogales Chamber of Commerce. CBUS. Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Department. Santa Cruz County Recorder's Office. Santa Cruz County One Stop. Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors.
Hey, Jen.
Nationwide Vision. National Guard. Mexican Consulate. Mariposa Community Health Center. Julio Gallardo's Office Supply. Hilltop Gallery. Double support. Health Choice Arizona. First things first. Dora Today. Department of Economic Security. Corazon. Circles of Peace. I should know what this means. It's CIA. That's not that secret government organization, but it's a community health organization. Community Intervention Associates, that's right. Child and Family Resources. Senpatico. And we need to thank this young lady for this gracious list. This young lady put together the sponsors, called all the vendors, kept calling them, kept putting all the organizations together. Thank you, everyone. Battered Immigrant Women. AZCA. Arizona Rangers, the Sonoyta Company. And the Arizona Rangers, the Santa Cruz Company. Thank you, sir. Border Echo for their promotions and for their thank yous and continued support. Arizona Department of Public Safety. American Red Cross. The Nogales Family Resource Center. The Victim Services Program. United Way. Unisource. U.S. Customs and Border Protection. U.S. Border Patrol. The Living Center. Sykes. And two others saved for the end. For the provision of food for the students and the adults, we want to thank Southwest Food Service. And lastly, but not least, but foremost, Safeway, who started the whole thing, for their emotional support, financial support. We thank you. And the children thank you. Let's do this again. Great, yes.
Well, I guess as the chairman, I will take the floor for just a minute, and I keep hearing what a wonderful job we did, and it's very important that we all understand that this was a collaborative effort. We all kind of, did what we needed to do to get it done, and like Dr. Udney said, when those children, and you saw the faces, and you saw the thank yous and the God bless yous, that's what it was all about. I just want to thank everybody in this room that participated and helped us, and this is really the first year we are going to move forward with this project. So I hope to see you next year.
That's it? All right, thank you. Okay, the next item is an update, actually good news, on the PEP Carroll White Physical Education Program. Kathy Scott will bring us up to speed on that. It's really good news.
Good evening, board members, audience, Mr. Velasquez. About this time last year, I approached the board and said that we had submitted what we're calling the PE grant. And we just did not get funded for that, and neither did any other school in Arizona. A few weeks ago, one of the members of this committee got a phone call from the federal government, and they said, "Do you still want that grant?" A couple of the schools had backed down. We had not resubmitted it. Of course, we said, of course. And consequently, we have been awarded $750,000 a year for 3 years countywide. Some of you have this document, but for the audience and Mr. Alfredo, let me say what it's here. This application was submitted in consultation with several parties, including Mr. Velasquez, his grant writer, Mike Hughes, Chris Batchelier, myself, and then we had consulted many other people. So it's a very collaborative grant. The submission asked for $740,000 a year for 3 years to provide basically 10 physical education health instructors. One of the things that we have to be very aware of, this is not the old PE teacher where each of the 6 elementary schools, however they wanted to use their PE teacher, could use that PE teacher. Some outstanding, some little more than recess monitors. This is a collaborative, age-appropriate program of health and physical activity, community-wide, because we will also work with the Boys and Girls Club. They have to look at 60 minutes of physical activity a day. Of course, we're not taking 60 minutes out of the elementary day for physical activity, so we want to make sure that there's other things in place for them. One of the things that I have been asked repeatedly is, what happens at the end of the 3 years? We get all of this in place. I have to tell you about the coincidences of life. I was on a cruise to Tahiti, and one of my table mates was a retired superintendent who said that he was operating his PEP grant for his district. I said, I just applied for a PEP grant with the county superintendent's office. He said, we got it for 3 years and we're applying again. So if that district can get it repeatedly, why not we? And who knows, you're in the middle of Tahiti and you're finding out about this grant, and he gave me some good ideas for the application. If you look at the bullets, okay, one of the things that you'll need to understand is this is a federal grant, which means it has an October start date. So even if we wanted to put these people in place tomorrow, we're nowhere near that way. It calls for hiring a health teacher. There will be a central coordinator with Mr. Velasquez's office. He will hire that person, and they will coordinate this for all the schools, plus the schools in the county. There is a mandate for data collection, analysis, and strict record keeping, and the Santa Cruz County Superintendent's Office is the lead agency. Mr. Velasquez, would you like to say anything that I missed?
Thank you, Mrs. Scott. Superintendent Zimmerman, governing board members, Mr. President. I have not received the award letter yet. Officially, I'm waiting for that to come in so that I can meet with everyone. I did meet with Mike Hughes last week to discuss the logistics of the grant. And so we reviewed the budget, and we're going to be making some modifications. We're going to be coming back and speaking with all of you. The NUSD school district is pretty much the base for funding for this project. So we will be sitting down with Superintendent Zimmerman to discuss this, and Mrs. Scott. And then we're also waiting for, I have a conference call with the U.S. Department of Education on the 22nd. And so once that is done, then we're going to come back. Mike is coming in. My consultant will be here the 21st and 22nd. So again, we will be planning this, and that time we'll be meeting with every school district. One of the partners that we forgot to mention was also the city of Nogales with the Boys Club. So we're talking anywhere from 6 to 7 health instructors for NUSD, and a couple of instructors for the east part of the county, Rio Rico, and part-timers for our community organizations. The director will be involved heavily on the data collection, the budget. I think what we'll be working with the governing board and the district is intergovernmental agreements, as we did with the GEAR Up program. Therefore, they would become employees of the district, okay? And you would be responsible for evaluations and payroll, but that funding would come through our office.
Any questions for either of us?
Could you give us an idea of what type of implementation, I mean, what type of program will it be for that benefits the children?
Each elementary school will have at least one PE teacher, and as Alfredo said, possibly the larger schools may share a second one. They will have PE classes. But in addition, they will go into each class and give a little health unit on their own schedule, and they will train the teachers to give these health units too. One of the things that I personally mandated, and everybody was in agreement, there was no argument whatsoever, all of these all of these lessons must be Common Core related, so that they have reading, writing, and math in them. So the teachers will be killing two birds with one stone. If they're doing a unit on calorie counting, they can make that into a math unit with charts and graphs and reading and writing. So it is a comprehensive, not just go out and play for 40 minutes twice a week. Any questions?
I'd just like to add that we did have the Carol MY grant several years ago, so Kathy, Mrs. Scott is correct on that. We funding for that ended in 2008, and we went back and reapplied, and as you know, the first cycle we weren't awarded. Second time around, we were persistent, and that money came through. So I think that once our 3-year plan is over with, we will go back and reapply for this grant, and hopefully continue to have it in Santa Cruz County.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Velasquez, I just want to tell you how much this grant means to the community. When we lost our elementary physical education teachers, it was a sad moment in our community, because as Michelle Obama has promoted nationwide, the atmosphere, making sure our kids are healthy, stay fit, and the value of fitness lifelong. And when we lost that, I think we lost a lot there, especially with our elementary schools. So I really want to compliment you and Mrs. Scott for the collaboration that you had in working with our district to keep after this grant. And my congratulations to you for helping our district out with this
Thank you,
grant.
Dr. Vernon.
Item C and D, summary budget report, student activities are there for your perusal.
Okay. Very good. Item 5, information discussion items. A, Think College Workshop Report.
I think formerly Harvard, it was initially the Harvard program, but I think one day Greta may be leaving Harvard, probably maybe go to Yale or some Cambridge or somewhere. But you've heard a lot over the last few months about what a great success it is, and we thought it would be appropriate to bring Greta up here so she could talk a little bit more about it, at least so the folks out in TV land and the folks here in front of us, and also the appreciation and the thank yous that you are deserving of. But there are some people probably like to see, well, what was so great about it? And she's got a little presentation she'd like to do. But I think it's deserving of a round of applause from the audience on the amount of work that she put forward. Just her emails to me, she's so sophisticated. I tell you, I had nothing but, it wasn't even a high expectation. I just knew it would come off the way it came off, and it was fantastic. So come on up and talk to us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Greta Solonap. I'm going to be a rising senior at Harvard College. And I'm here to talk to you guys about the Nogales Summit for Youth Leadership, which was a 5-day summer program for students here in the whole county, grades around incoming 8th graders to rising seniors in high school. And it was filled with 5 jam-packed days of activities, including academic activities, but as well as extracurricular, sports, a lot of stuff. And so I wanted to take this time to present to you, first, my motivation for the project. Second, some of the mission points that me and other of the college students that worked with me, we put the mission points together because we really wanted to tease out, like, what is our mission here? I wanted to show you some of the approaches that we took to kind of achieve our mission. I wanted to show you the people that were involved in this program, some of the results we had in May, and then some of the future outlooks, some of the future ideas that we plan to implement next year. And I have a lot of pictures to show you. So we'll go here. So my motivation for the project is inspired by two of the quotes that two of the studies that have been conducted recently about the educational system in Arizona. So the first was that the public education system in Arizona ranks 45th in the United States. And this study was conducted in 2009. The second study found that 4 out of 5 high school graduates within 6 years of high school graduation will not obtain a college degree. And this study was conducted in 2010. And so this is what really kind of compelled me to make something college geared and come back to my community. Granted, I haven't even graduated. So, but I do believe that, as someone that went to Nogales High School and is in college now, we can definitely go back and help the high school students and middle school students of today. And lastly, my last motivation was I went after my freshman year. I went to a summer camp that Harvard puts out, and it's called the Harvard Summit for Young Leaders in China. And this comprises of about 300 of the most talented and accomplished high school students all over China. They go to Shanghai, and we teach them for around 2 weeks. College students like myself are in charge of coming up with a curriculum, coming up with extracurriculars. And in this picture, as you can see, this guy actually came to Nogales as well. So we both were able to partake in the Harvard Summit for Young Leaders in China, and then we were also able to partake in the Nogales Summit for Youth Leadership. So from this experience, I really gained a lot of insight on how some kind of college-geared program can take place. So the mission of the Nogales Summit has 4 principal parts to it. The first part is to provide students in Santa Cruz County the resources they need to attain higher education, especially a college degree. And there is an emphasis on higher education. So there's been talk in the media about how studies have been conducted that not all students are necessarily, are necessarily meant to go to a specific college per se. But there is an emphasis on higher education, and we really want to advocate that for our students. The second mission is to develop young students' leadership skills to better achieve their short and long-term goals. The third mission is to incite a desire in these young students to serve the community. And the fourth is to foster meaningful relationships between college students and younger middle and high school students. So the next question is, how do we go about and achieve these goals? So in a nutshell, we achieve these goals by doing all these activities during the summer program. We have the academic seminars and the college career workshops. The academic seminars, here I have a picture here, are taught by 9 Harvard College students, and they range in topics. Someone did Latin American literature, someone else did chemistry, and these were all designed and engineered by the college students, and they're really just engineered to cater to these high school students and the middle school students, and they were a principal part of this summit. We also had lots of activities that promoted a healthy lifestyle. And so every day we would either do some form of exercise. We also played a ton of sports games, a ton of just outdoor activities. And so here is a picture of us playing dodgeball. And the seminar leaders, the college students, were fully integrated with the high school and middle school students. This was our event called the Olympiad, where we played dodgeball, kickball, and basketball all in one, like 2-hour segment. And that was a lot of fun. And this was an activity where we went to Madera Canyon. And what was supposed to be a 3-hour hiking trip became like a 5-hour hiking trip. So it was quite exhausting, but it was a lot of fun. And here is, as I can show you here, is our Think College t-shirts. So we were gracious enough to have donations from Hot Shots, and they say Think College in the front. And so, one of our principal messages of the summit. And here's a sample itinerary. Here was our itinerary this summit. And to give you a picture of what a typical day was like, I'll pick Wednesday. We had breakfast. The students went to a seminar for an hour and a half. And then we did jazzercise. They had a choice, because we don't want to force students to do anything they don't want to. But they had a choice of exercising and doing jazzercise in the gym or going to a boot camp. Where seminar leaders were outside and doing different kind of physical exercises. And then we had lunch, and then we had another academic seminar, and then we had a college career workshop, which I'll discuss in a bit, and then we had the Olympiad event. So these were full jam-packed days, so it started at 8:30 and ended at 6. Maybe I can go back. So I discussed the academic seminars and the college career workshops. We had activities to promote a healthy lifestyle, and we had extracurriculars. For one day, the students got to choose between doing photography, creative writing, Indian dance, Latin dance, and tennis or frisbee. So they got a lot of choices to choose from. And so all these different approaches are ways in which we kind of achieve our mission. So, who were the people involved in this project? First and foremost were the seminar leaders. So as you can see, those, I'm in the middle, but those are the 10 Harvard students that came to Nogales, and they range in grades. So 3 of them had just graduated from Harvard. They had just graduated 2 days before. And then some are juniors and some are seniors. And they come from all over the country. And I got to choose them. I had an application process at school. I forwarded it through the various emails, and I got to choose them. And all of them they're all very passionate about helping children. They all have experience working with teenagers. So they were really passionate about this project, and it was really great to have them here. Of course, the next big portion of the summit were the students, and that's just a group of students playing basketball. And lastly, we have the facilitators, and these were people that just helped us behind the scenes, and at the summit, were just helping us run things, and we're very grateful for them. So what happened in May? So just to give you an idea, approximately 80 students attended every day, so we're really, really grateful for that. We had students from schools all over the Santa Cruz County. So there's the list of schools that were represented at the summit. We had various grades. It was great to see that the majority of people were freshmen and sophomores, and that was the target audience and students that we were hoping for, because we think that they're right at the brink of the start of high school. So that's really exciting. But we also enjoyed having the older kids as well, because a lot of this information is really relevant to them at this time. And here are some student comments. I sent out an evaluation form to garner feedback because we want to do this program next year, and I really want to see what I can improve on, what the seminar leaders can improve on. And so I've been collecting feedback. But I wanted to show you some comments just to show you what some kids have been saying. And so from a Nogales High School junior, one of them said, "I've always wanted to go to college, but because of you guys, I will challenge myself and do my best to get an Ivy League education." Someone else said, "I really enjoyed the classes because they gave me a little taste of what college courses are like, and they were very informative. If I had not participated in these classes, I probably would have never heard of these courses and fields of study." So that was really great to hear, and which just encourages us to put more subjects in the academic seminars next time. And another student posted on Facebook, said, "Had a fantastic time in the last week with some great people who I will never forget. NSILC was a complete success. A special thanks to Greta and all the other Harvard students who have touched not only my life but an entire community. Nogales thanks you and welcomes you again anytime." So that was a summary of what the summit was like. For the future, we do plan to implement a few more ideas, one of which is just to accommodate more students. We'd like to welcome as many students as we can. Another one is to use the student feedback that I've received to make improvements. Another one is to provide ACT, SAT test prep. That's a principal part of the college application process. And so I really think it's imperative that students have this resource. And I'm trying to figure out how to necessarily bring that to Nogales, but it's a work in progress. And in China, actually, when I went to the camp, they had a distinguished speaker series. And so they brought various people from all over China to speak to these students. So I thought it would be very interesting to have an inspirational speaker or some form of speaker and role model. We had a career fair where people from the community came and spoke to the children, and that was really great. They had several role models to look up to, but it would be great to also invite an inspirational speaker. So with that, I just hope that I've given you a picture of what the summit was like. Please feel free to ask me any questions, give me any recommendations, and we look forward to doing this again next year. Thank you.
Awesome.
Does the board like to ask any questions? Greta? Any comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Greta, I attended your closing ceremonies and I stayed for a couple of hours just to see how the academic seminars were. But I thought that the key to the whole success of the camp was the people that you selected. And you would think because they're Harvard that these kids have money. Well, the kid that I talked to was so intelligent, so articulate. And when he told me his story, that he's homeless through high school, finished high school, and went on to Harvard University, was just incredible. And I thought you got a good group of students when I attended the seminars, how they were able to grasp the learning and making it fun, and how the buy-in that they got with those. I was telling Mrs. Montiel, hire some of these people here, tell them to come back, and that, I mean, they were just excellent students, but they're average, come from average backgrounds, and they understood Nogales was not a shock for them. And I want to thank you because I hope you will devote the time. I know you want to get into the medical field, and that's going to take a lot of your time, but I hope you don't let go of this program because I think it's a marvelous program, and it opens up doors for our kids to look into and to see what the outside world is about and what they need to prepare themselves for. And I also want to thank Mr. Velasquez for his financial contributions from his office. That was very helpful to get this thing going though too. Thank you, Greta, for a job well done.
If I could just comment on that, the students that I selected had applied, and so I asked them essay questions, very simple ones like, why do you want to do this? What makes you want to come to Nogales? And most of them, a lot of them had never even traveled outside of their home state, but a lot of them have such inspirational stories, and it was really key to pick students that would kind of connect with our students. A lot of them were Latino. There was only one non-Latino person. She was Asian American, but a lot of them just felt so compelled in their hearts to help kids that they felt like they saw themselves in. So that was really great to pick them. Yeah.
Good job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Greta.
Anything else? I'd like just close this by thanking you so very much. The amount of work that led up to it was amazing. And Greta is aware that we have budgeted money. We don't really want to talk about how much because we got Alfredo in the audience and we want some of his money too. So we don't want to make it sound like we're doing it all. So count you in, right? But anyway, we have budgeted some money. And you know, what I really liked about your presentation, Greta, is you took away some of the things that you think will work next year, maybe just evaluating and taking into account all the feedback that you got to make it better. And I just expect next year to even be better and probably even more students, even though you'll probably want to cap it. But anyway, thank you so much. Anything else? Moving forward, okay. The next report is probably long overdue, but certainly not something that we have not paid attention to over the last actually several years, all the way back to the Zamudio superintendency, where technology, and even before that where technology has become a focus. We have had a lot of discussion over the years about bandwidth and why some of our systems are bogging down at times. And what I did is I met with our tech director, Alex Lopez, took into account quite a few things that he's going to put in the presentation, whether they are questions on policy that we had, the IJNDB policy, things that have to do with concerns that we have had over the last few years. I see Kathy's here, who is part of I think you're probably the chairperson of the tech committee. So there are things that we're doing. I think at the end what you'll find out is probably a lot of things we'd even want to do even more of, but it isn't something that money can't fix, right? So what we're going to do is Alex put together a presentation that covers a lot of the concerns and questions that the board has had over time. And then when we get done, or actually however you would like to do it, Mr. President, but we're going to hit about 4 or 5 areas that we think that might be of interest to the governing board, and whatever questions you have, we'll entertain them.
All right, thank you. Good evening, board members, board president, Mr. Zimmerman, and audience. I'll be doing a presentation on technology. Feel free to ask any questions during my presentation. I know I might get a little technical, so if you don't understand something, let me know.
Yes, don't speak in acronyms and
I'll try
all these letters that you have.
I'll be covering the Trillion Wireless Service, NUSD website, policy IJNDB, and talk briefly about the technology committee. To start out is, what is wireless wide area network? It's a network that connects all schools on direct line of sight through radios at a speed of 100 megabits per second. What does that mean? So we have these, because of the mountainous areas that we have here in Nogales, Trillion had to set up these big monopoles on certain campuses. So the radios could connect line of sight from campus to campus, and those are the radios that are set on top of each monopole. For every we get the full 100 megabits per second for all district-wide, all the sites. So this is what the design looks like. It starts out at the district office. From there, all traffic comes in and routes out to all the schools. If you can see, this is a design, a ring is what's called a ring design. So every school, every bullet point receives a full 100 megabits per second. And in case that one radio is to go down, it'll take an alternate route to reach its destination. For instance, at Welty, it connects back to Coronado and it connects back to the district office. So if one radio is to go down, it'll reroute itself and take a different loop to reach its destination. With our previous vendor that we had T1s, and our speed back then was 3 megabits per second, which was nothing compared to 100. Also, the support we would get from them was not as reliable, because anytime it was monsoon season, every time it would rain, we knew something was going to go bad. The cables would get wet, and we never received any answers from the vendor as to what's going on out there. With Trillion, it's been so reliable because they're on top of the network 24/7. They have a monitoring NOC system in their location back in Austin, Texas. I'll get calls at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning letting me know your schools are down. I'm like, wait till at least 6, 7 a.m. so I can wake up. But that's how reliable their service is. Just 2 weeks ago, we had an issue at A.J. Mitchell. We had a big storm, and both radios at the school went down. I received a call that same Sunday. The next morning, Monday morning, a technician was on site, repaired both radios, and Mitchell was up within 2 hours. By 9 a.m., 10 a.m., they were up. Also, last week, we had an issue at Challenger. One of the radios went down, but Challenger never noticed any of the downtime because the network was rerouting back through NHS instead of going through Lincoln. It was rerouting back through AJM, NHS, and then back to Challenger. So even though we had one radio that was down, they never noticed any downtime. And sure enough, the next day they came in and repaired that other radio for us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the bandwidth and how it works. The Trillion WAN is 100 megabits per second, and anything, all those other pipes that you see on the left side is what runs through our network. So we have IP telephony that runs through our network, data, our internet, and district applications. With our IP telephony, all our phones, anytime anyone makes a call out of a long distance call or local call, everything runs through our network, which is the Trillion service. Anytime anyone accesses the internet, it runs through the network. All our district applications, PowerSchool, Visions, Chronos, all our district applications that we utilize, everything runs through our network. So what this means is, I'll use a freeway as an example. If you have a freeway with 100 lanes, you can the freeway, the cars will travel with no jams or anything. This is what our WAN is. One of the misunderstandings that most people might have is our internet. Our internet also runs at a 45 megabits per second, which can also get jammed. Doesn't mean that our WAN runs that the internet runs on our WAN at 100 megabits per second. Our internet is 45 megabits per second, which at this point is a concern for us because there's a lot of demand on video and a lot of social networking, but we've got that blocked anyways. But a lot of just demand on online applications and video. So that's another concern that we have at this moment, but we'll handle that our come year season. Do you have any questions regarding the WAN bandwidth? And I don't know if I made myself clear on how it flows.
I have a question.
Sure.
You're saying that the 45 bits per second on the internet usage is getting jammed up by social networking usage, and that is blocked?
Yes.
So how does it jam it up?
No, I'm just saying those applications exist. I'm just saying that the World Wide Web is the internet as a whole. Everything exists, but we do have the social networking, and I probably shouldn't have used that word, but we'll touch that based on the IGJ DBN policy. We'll touch more on that topic. So if you can bear with me, and we'll explain more on the blockage on that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lopez, just so I'm getting the right interpretation here. So you're saying that this trillion is working efficiently and effectively, and everybody at the schools is getting the service, and you don't have any concerns right now with the trillion?
None at all. And I'll also give an example. Before, when we had our previous vendor, our phone calls, whenever, and especially at the high school, if anyone tried to dial out, calls would drop automatically, instantly, because our network was so jammed up. We couldn't make calls out. Any calls weren't coming in. And with this network, there's no drops of packets on phone calls, on internet, or anything else with our district applications.
And your committee hasn't heard any complaints from principals or teachers?
None.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not what I got, even from the superintendent.
Yeah.
That's why I want to make sure that I explain the difference between the internet and the WAN. It's two different things.
Well, I'm just talking about the trillion.
The trillion works fine. I have never heard any complaints on it.
So Alex, and you know me, I'm not my strongest suit in speaking of technology, but when you had the T1 lines, it was running on 3?
Yes.
So
1.5 on elementary schools and 3 at middle schools and high schools.
So it's 15 times faster.
Yes.
I can tell you that there have been some times where there were some schools calling where it appeared that it was running slow. We don't know if that was more the exception than the rule. Occasionally maybe something happens. For the most part, and I can only judge here from the district office from where I'm at, that usually we don't have any complaints, but obviously if there's schools that are having issues, generally those are reported. And there has been some discussion, I don't know if you're going to further that discussion about increasing the bandwidth, because there are times that I know that teachers, for instance, I'll pick on a time, half-day schedules, where maybe there's a greater opportunity for teachers when they're not teaching to be doing other things that are internet related. It bogs down the system. So, to me, from what I've heard, if there's any complaints, it's going to be with the bandwidth.
The internet
Yes, the internet.
itself that runs within the trillion. So that's where the misunderstanding is. That yes, the internet runs inside the trillion service, but the internet pipe is a whole different. It's a whole separate freeway within the WAN, the trillion service. So that, as I mentioned, that is a concern for us at this moment, because our computer count, as you can see, I noted at the top, approximately 2,000 computers district-wide. That's increasing year to year. We've been implementing a lot more computers, and more other portable devices are coming into our district that we're going to be talking about that later in the presentation. But yes, the internet is a concern for us at the moment. It's not bogging down quite yet, but we will get there. It will be, but we are going to take the appropriate measures to make sure that we get that increase through our E-rate season.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lopez.
Okay, moving on. I might have just skipped on a few things. So how reliable is the network? As I mentioned, it's really reliable. We have 24/7 monitoring network operations center in Austin, Texas. Our local on-site tech is here on-site within a few hours. If it's an issue that can be resolved that same day if he has the equipment. If not, if he doesn't have the equipment will be shipped next business day and will be delivered to him at his location in Tucson, and then he'll drive down and fix the issue for us. The minimal downtime for any site is about 2 to 4 hours from where the issue should be resolved. Okay, moving on to our website. I'm going to go through different pages on screenshots that I did on our NUSD website. But just to point out a few things, We have our homepage, district leadership tab, our schools, departments, helpful links, contact us. Then at the bottom we have quick links, and there's a few information on community, district facts, newsroom. The newsroom covers special events that have been going on at the schools, our event calendar, instructional calendar, our district email, and our district intranet, which is separate from our outside website. This is an intranet that's hosted within ourselves in our network, and there's a lot of information there that the staff can utilize from the business office and our HR department. Also, we post newsletters for our parents, the banner for the Jump Back to School rally or the event. So as you can see, we have been utilizing the website to its full potential. This is the high school webpage. Again, similar look, very user-friendly. The buttons at the top, just very easy to navigate through the website. We did change the pictures this summer, so we have our own students and from our district on the website now. Here's another screenshot of Wade Carpenter, the webpage. So it's pretty similar. Then our event calendar. The event calendar is on our district main page and on every school website as well. So every school is responsible for updating the event calendar, making sure that all events are posted on the website, which they are doing a good job at. And then here's a web links. This is a very helpful web page for our parents and community where they can access many different links as for parent links, just games. They can access safe games for the students to play at home, very educational sites, student links, safety tips on cyberbullying and things like that we will cover that in the presentation as well. So to elaborate a little bit more on the website, it has street maps. So I've heard a lot that our website is very helpful for people that want to come visit Nogales because every school has a street map and it points back to Google Maps. So it gives them the exact location of how to reach their destination. Helpful links, as we have a lot of links like for our city of Nogales, our Santa Cruz County website, Patagonia, the Patagonia Lake, and just different helpful links within Nogales. Contact information, how to contact the schools, how to contact the district office, all the personnel, and all the phone numbers and staff that we have in our district. Announcements on schools happenings. The schools are very good at updating their websites with any happenings at their schools. The same with the event calendar. We have the lunch menu posted every month. And it has a very professional look, and the pictures look very professional. It's very user-friendly, as I had mentioned. So how much does it cost? This is something that you're probably wondering by now. The total annual cost is $17,028. E-rate eligible service to the district varies based on our free and reduced lunch rate. So for our district, year to year, we're usually at 86-89% discount. So that would be, and those numbers are wrong. We don't pay the $13,000. I'm sorry, that was not meant to. I did not mean to put that down, but the $13,111 is what E-rate would cover. So we would pay. Right, okay, it's a discount, okay. That's why I put it then, because of the discount. Thank you. Ineligible services are 11 sites for the updates, which is not covered by E-rate, so our total district portion is $5,752. That's what we pay on a year. Any questions? No. Okay. And this is just some information I put up there, just if you're wondering how do we know how many visits we have. Since August 2011 to June 2012. That's the number of visits that we've had into our district website. Okay. All right, moving on to policy IJNDB, and I'll be talking about some of the protective measures that we have in place for the new revised policy. Oops. We do have a content web filter in place that's aligned also with our firewall. These are appliances that are installed in our network that protect our users from accessing inappropriate websites. We do block social media sites, chat rooms, peer-to-peer networking sites. That's where you can download illegal content. We have all that blocked as well. We do have an antivirus program and spam filters for our district email to make sure that anything that comes into our district is scanned before reaching its destination. We have an electronic information service user agreement that's signed by and required to be signed by every staff, student, and parent if for the parents sign for the students when they're not at a certain age appropriate. We have also adding that staff classroom management is really important in monitoring at the sites, so that's another protective measure there, that our staff is on top of our students, making sure that they're not trying to access any website, inappropriate website, or trying to bring inappropriate content from home utilizing their jump drives or flash drives. Also, based on everything I just touched on, it is important that we have all this because we need to be in compliance with our Children Internet Protection Act. It is an E-rate requirement, and it's required also from the Arizona Department of Education, and that it be included in our technology plan, which our technology plan is due up for renewal this year for 3 years.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lopez, when we were talking about this policy at our last meeting, the concern that I had was, can some district employee go home and be able to chat directly off of his personal computer system and chat directly with any student and get into our system to chat with our students through his computer at home or anything like that?
If you don't mind, Dr. Varona, I'm going to cover that right in my next theme.
Okay.
Is that okay? Or?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. As far as training for the to implement the policy IJNDB, some of the approaches that we're going to do is, and some of them we already are doing, is utilizing our NUSD website to make sure that we provide information out to the community and our parents too, so they're aware of what we're trying to accomplish, training our students. I've been in contact with Mayra in the HR department to make sure, see if we can incorporate the cyberbullying, internet safety, and proper internet conduct into our Safe Schools training for our staff. We've also been doing staff development for our teachers during our technology day. And I know that last year during our technology day as well, George Silva from the Santa Cruz Attorney's Office came and did a session on cyberbullying and other areas of concern. The Nogales Police Department has also been doing, as part of their program, been touching on this topic as well. And training for students, I know Mr. Parra's is working really hard with the Nogales High School staff right now in adding online programs where students can take a training online where they are educated on how to use proper conduct as well. So here, Dr. Alvarez, we're going to touch on your question. I'm going to pass it on to Carlos Tavares, our network specialist, and he'll talk briefly about what measures we have on protecting some of our outside users.
Good evening, school board, audience. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Bring Your Own Device, BYOD. It's a reality. It's all over. All government agencies, businesses, and schools especially are facing. BYOD is really a buzzword. It's a fad. It's not new to NUSD. It's just a buzzword because we've seen that reality, and we've seen that happening since 2007 when we implemented the wireless network at the Nogales High School. Students started bringing in their laptops from home. They're bringing their iPods even though they're not supposed to. Now they bring their iPads and other tablets. So it is a reality, and it happens all around. Now that technology and access are becoming more affordable and persistent. We do have a system in place, we do have a procedure in place to allow those students to use their laptops or the devices they bring in from home. They have to have a parent permission signed by their parents and by them, and we give them access through the technician at the Nogales High School. There's a special form that they fill out, and they have to give the laptop to the technician at the high school. He registers it, and he configures it to be used as a device that's authorized on the to use the network in general, and particularly the internet. We do have the technology in place to limit or deny access. It's called network access control. The antivirus has the capability built in. We use Sophos antivirus as an antivirus, and it has the capability of limiting access to the network. If we find that the computer is infected with a virus or does not meet the patch requirements or has a vulnerability that's known, it will block it from accessing the network and the internet. So we do have that technology in place. What we can't really limit or control, we can limit and control what we have and devices accessing our network. What we can't control is a student bringing in a cell phone in which they can connect their laptop to and then access the internet and access other networks using their home cell phone provider. We just don't have control over that. But anything that connects to our network is monitored and is accessible or access the filters to filter the access to the internet at any particular time.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tavares, just to make sure that I'm clear, because this policy asks for a lot of requirements for the superintendent to recommend. So I just want to make sure, do we have a complete log if anybody is talking to, speaking, writing through our technology center? Do we have a log of everybody who's speaking to our students?
No, we don't. The technology limits only certain aspects. We can only limit what applications are being used. We do limit social media. So anybody who wants to access a chat room is blocked. Anybody who wants to access Facebook or other social networks out there are blocked. We don't really have a control of who's talking to whom because they could be sending email, and we don't know that. We can't really limit the use of email because they need to be in constant communication. Our staff uses district email as well as web email, so we can't really control. We do control what applications are being used, but we cannot control who's talking to who and when.
So any district employee can get into the system and chat with a student?
It depends. If it depends on the application that they're going to use,
Such as?
MSN Messenger, such
Okay.
as Gmail or Gtalk. Those are blocked. They're not accessible. If they try to open an application, it'll block them. It'll tell them that application is blocked and it's not accessible.
I just want to make sure, that I realize that students have an ID within the school system, and they have another personal email address that's private and personal. I just want to make sure that there's a record, if anybody's talking to our students through our servers, that we have a record of who is speaking to our students.
That would be very hard to implement, very expensive to implement also, but it is possible to do it.
That's my concern, Superintendent Zimmerman, of who is talking to our students through our servers. That's my concern. And I think that's what this policy, these two new policies that we adopted, deals in that aspect. And I just wanted to make sure that there's no loopholes or somebody that's speaking to a student that shouldn't be speaking to a student on a particular subject, that policy addresses that so that there's no loopholes in that policy. Mr. Chairman?
We do our best effort to try and block every single application that's out there for chatting and every single website that's out there for chatting also.
Maybe, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Zimmerman, at a later date, we could talk about that more. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tavares, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, just to understand your answer, there is no control of that situation.
Well, there's chatting applications coming on.
You're limiting access to certain sites.
Right.
You don't have any control whatsoever
Well,
over who is speaking to whom.
One of our systems
And
has
when.
what they call the application control also. That's another technology that's in place where it's a category that you block. So if you block online chat or if you block instant messaging applications, it will find the application that's trying to be installed and it'll block it from functioning. That's another application, and that's another thing that we do have in place. So anything that comes up new, there's hundreds of applications coming out every day. And if a student will find it and try to install it and use it, then it'll deny access if it's already categorized by our system. And that system gets updated every hour. So if an application comes out today, within an hour, the system will know about it and will block it.
Still want to ask the same question. And I think Marcy's asked it two times. Let me ask it once more. A teacher wants to speak to a student after hours about non-school issues. Do they have the ability to do that?
That depends on what application they're using. If it's an email application.
If they know which
and they
application
know, exactly.
is right to use, that is permitted, clearly the answer is yes, they can do that.
Yes, they can.
Okay.
And can I?
But I think you're
Suggest
talking about
something
through
in
our,
here?
there's a difference between our system
Our system
versus
and the World Wide
going
Web.
the
Right.
World Wide Web and going
You know,
MSN
I'm
or
talking
Gmail.
about our
Our
system.
system.
Right, I understand we can't eliminate the World Wide Web. And if I want to email a student and I know their email address, I can email.
That's right, it's not going
Right.
to come through our network.
Right.
It's going to
Right,
go through the World Wide Web.
right.
But Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Zimmerman, our policy is just for our system, right? That's all it's for.
Right.
Yeah, and I understand the assurances that the governing board wants, and I'll make sure that we follow up, but what I am capturing from this discussion is that the biggest concern is that someone can be at home, go through our system, and communicate with our students, and that is what we don't want.
Right.
Okay, so I think from there is what we'll move forward, and we will come back with something that addresses that.
Just to add on with our system is what we can control, and I think that's what we've been trying to explain, and that's what we asked our technicians to do. Where you have the issues is your personal accounts. I have an email account that it goes through the system. It can be monitored, and they can pull out all my emails because that's my business. If something comes up and I use that account, that can be traced. But what we cannot control, and I haven't seen a system that can control, is an outside personal technology use where a teacher at 12 o'clock uses their own personal cell phone to text a student with their own personal text. That is impossible to trace. The only thing is that you have to keep in mind that teachers or adults who act negatively or do things they're not supposed to, they don't behave as adults, when they are investigated, when things come up, the technology that is used is usually their private and personal accounts. And it is not until they are reported or until they're investigated by the authorities that they find these items, and that's how they are caught. Because of course they're smart enough to be doing things they're not supposed to. Obviously they're not going to use the email address that we have in place, and these guys stay on top of it as best as they can as technology changes every day with what we can control. And that's part of the policies, that as long as we're monitoring our own sites within our own addresses, within our own technology, that is what we can offer. Right now there is a situation where we have students that have used our network to do things they're not supposed to, and we can trace them immediately, and we have disciplined those students. There's also contracts in place where parents signed, students signed before they even use the computers, our computers, and they do those the measures as to the discipline that will be, consequences, and so forth. We are educating our students as best as possible. Mr. Silva comes every year, educates our students, and educates the staff as well. So those are things that we have in place. It's just very, very difficult to it's like going into your personal phone lines at home. You know, unless something does come up, then even us, we can't do it. We have to bring law enforcement to help us with that. But hopefully that helps. And again, we're trying to make sure that we are on top of it as best as possible. Hopefully this explains a little bit, though. Thank you.
Any other questions so we can move on? We're almost done. Now, next I'd like to bring Kathy Haddock. She's our Technology Committee Chairperson. She'll briefly talk about the technology function.
Okay, I'm the chairperson. I'm Catherine Haddock. I teach at Challenger Elementary, 2nd grade. I'm also the chairperson for the Technology Committee. And the focus of the Technology Committee is to get technology into the classroom and to train the teachers how to use it. And as a group of teachers and the tech experts in our school, we get together once a month, and when we talk about ways to get teachers trained and what we need to get into the classrooms. And our focus has been on both things. Lately, we've made some great strides on the technology, and I'll talk training, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Computer life cycle. One thing we have to focus on is what do we need to have in the classrooms. Computers' life cycles go about 5 years before they start getting out of date. The year before last, we were able to replace one computer lab in each school, and thanks to Kathy Scott and her grant and stuff, we were able to get all the schools. She got 3 schools covered, so all the schools were able to get one updated lab. Last year, our main focus was trying to get laptops to the teachers so the teachers would be able to go home, prepare lessons, have things ready, and be able to come in and hook up to their projectors and be able to teach for the next day. We were able to get about half of the laptops we need, and we're still working on that this year. That's still what we're working on this year. We're also trying to look and see what classrooms do not have the projectors in there, what do not have the smartboard technology. And when I'm saying smartboard technology, I mean either an airliner or some kind of device where the teacher can not only have the computer there, but they can write on the screen, they can be able to do things. I use in my classroom, the one thing I was using, am using, is the math book. The math book also came with a license, and I can pull up the 2nd grade math book. When I teach my math class, first thing I do, my kids do not bring out their math book. We work on the screen together. It is exactly what it's in the book. I am able to write on the screen. I am to do the answers. I can do all the little activities. It usually has some games or something that they can play with them to help them understand the objective that we're teaching. And all this is up on the screen. and then we're able off the internet. And this was actually some of the things that we were having trouble with before we updated our LAN. I couldn't load the pages. Teachers use the internet all day. We rarely probably sit down, unless it's after school, and do grades. A lot of us do it on our own home networks. What we do during the day is we use the internet all day long and use our computers to teach. I have all the workbooks and everything that my students do. I can put them up there. I can discuss them with the children, and then they pull out their books and they can do the activities by themselves. And having the internet expanded has made such a difference. I remember one of our teachers, Terry Sprigg, we have KidBiz, which is a great program which does nonfiction literature not literature, but nonfiction articles to the children. She says, this program's wonderful. I love it, but every time I take my kids up to the lab, they start fooling around while they're waiting for a page to load. Well, now that's not a problem. The kids go up there and it loads when they need to have it loaded, and it runs at a speed that we need to have it run. One thing I wanted to address, what Dr. Verona was asking earlier about some problems with the internet. I know in the spring that we had some problems with the internet, but it actually had nothing to do with the Wi-Fi. We kept crawling down to a slow, and I worked with Carlos, and Carlos was great. And it turned out we were having a problem with our router, was causing some IP conflicts. And that was causing some problems. And teachers go home and they say, oh, my internet's not working. And they don't know whether it's the delivery of the internet, of the actual bandwidth, or if it's a device in their school that's acting up, or an IP conflict, or everything else. But we had a conflict, but it had nothing to do with the bandwidth. It had to do with that we had some problems with some machines in school, and Carlos got it fixed like within a day. We had it up and running. But there are many components to the internet and getting the internet working, and sometimes those things slow us down, and it may not be the bandwidth, it may be something else. But all that has to come together to make sure that we get that content to the children. Okay? We also just got a wireless lab to each of the elementaries to help with the internet, for the ELL students to work on activities to help them learn English. And that was provided by Kathy Scott and Angel Canto, helped get the grant. And we got a whole beautiful Apple wireless lab for each of the elementary schools that we're using to teach the ELL students English. And that's also another thing that's just been put in place. So under the Technology Day, we've been wanting for years, we've been wanting to get this thing where we'd like to have like a mini conference for the teachers. You know, we spend so much money trying to get teachers trained. We have so much talent inside the district. So we were able to have our first Technology Day last February 1st. It was run at the high school on an early release day, and it was run like a small conference. We had sessions, and we were able to have different things so teachers could get a packet and see, oh, I'm interested in this, and go to that session. Some of the sessions that were given, we were given one by Lyndon Martin, gave 3 sessions on how to convert files from Office to Open Office. We are now using Open Office as our basic Office program because Open Office is free, it's open source. We can update free. We had figured it was going to cost about $25,000 just to buy licenses for the laptops. That's a waste. And we are able to get Open Office free, it's open source, and we're able to get updates and not have to put that money out. So we're changing to Open Office, and he gave 3 classes, he gave a class every session. There were 3 sessions to teach the teachers how to be converting their file from Open Office and what the differences are. There's not a lot of differences, but to make them more comfortable with it. We also had 3 sessions on the cyberbullying by our county attorney, Georgia Silver. CCS had their mobile training lab out there at the high school, and the teachers were able to go in. They were trained by Dee Turner on how to download and how to get lessons for your objectives, how to use them in your classroom. Larry Frederick gave a class on how to use web pages. Terry Spriggs showed how to use a document camera. Ralph Lopez, how to use smartboard activities. Alex Lopez and Carlos Tavares showed how to download educational YouTube videos and be able to save them on your desktop so they're there when you need them. I like reading Rainbow sometimes when it's raining and stuff, and I can have it for my kids and I'm able to download them to my desktop. We also had CCS come for a whole week last year teaching the teachers how to use the smartboard technology, how to use the devices, and how to use the notebook software. That's the software that allows them to create lessons, and then they can have lessons on 10s and 1s, and then you can develop it at night and bring it in the next day. And we had a whole week of training with the CCS came down and trained our teachers. The ways that teachers use technology in the classroom is really amazing. The projectors in the classrooms and the smartboard technology and all the different things all the web pages, all the curriculum that's out there for the teachers to use, besides that most series now all have components that help you use their series with the kids. It makes the teaching in the classroom much more exciting and makes it much more exciting for the students. Ideally, we want every classroom to have a mounted projector and smartboard technology, and we're still working towards that. We'd also like to look at document cameras are very popular right now. They were showing how to use manipulatives, how to do things so the whole classroom can see. That you're not trying to show something to the kids and you've got the front row can see but the kids behind can't. When you've got a document camera and you put it there, everyone in that classroom can look at the screen and say, I can see it. I can see what the teacher's doing. And that's part of it, equality. We want to make sure all children have the same access. And when you have this kind of technology that everyone can see the screen, everyone can see what the teacher's doing, it allows everybody to have that kind of access. The students, especially the elementary students, are digital natives. We know that most of our little ones have learned how to use our telephones and our iPads before they have even held a pencil. We have to start looking at activities that reach them and things that will get them going, that this is what I can relate to. And it doesn't have to go on all day, and it doesn't have to go on every single thing. But this is a resource that the teachers have that is excellent. And I have talked to other teachers in other school districts, and I am so impressed with Nogales because, believe it or not, we are up there with Scottsdale and Glendale with the kind of technology that we have in our classrooms. And honestly, we're not stopping. We are really working to try to make sure everyone has everything, and then what can we go next? What is the next thing we can do? Because we want our kids to have the same opportunity as the Glendale and Scottsdale schools. And so they can go out and go to Harvard and all these other schools and be at the same level as they are. That's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Haddock, just like when you have a technology day or things like
Yes.
that, or maybe at the end of the year, do you ever have evaluations from the participants so you can at least come back to us and tell us, we asked the participants these questions and these are the evaluations that we got back, so that we can understand, at least through that kind of an instrument, how acceptance it is among the faculty?
That's a great idea. This past time was our first time that we've been able to do this, but that actually is a really good idea, and we should do that for this next one. We are going to have another technology day this year in February, and we've actually, the only complaint I ever got from any of the teachers was that they wanted it longer. They wanted more of it. So we were able to get an earlier release, so we'll be able to start the sessions a little early and get more sessions in for the teachers, or have them have access to more of the sessions. But I like that idea. We should look into that for this next technology day.
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Haddock, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I had a question. Could you give me an idea of how much time is being spent at the different grade levels actually teaching kids how to use computers?
It depends.
Is it systematic, or is it just hit and miss?
It's a little bit hit and miss, but there's two different things. Technology is coming to the classroom now that we're using technology to teach the curriculum. And then also we're using the technology the children are learning. Like last year in second grade, I was using the wireless labs, and the kids would write letters. And it was funny because kids usually hate writing. My kids, I'd say, we're going to do journal writing. They go, yay! Because they knew that the next thing they were going to do is get the laptops out, and they'd do their first draft in the notebook, then they'd go into the computer, they would write in their letter, they would send it to me. There's a closed circuit, it's called AirDrop in the Mac line. They can drop their document to me. I print it out, they get to edit it, they go back at their laptops, they get to edit it, so they're learning how to use word processors, they're using how to use editing marks, they're learning how to edit their own documents. These are 7-year-olds. And then they send it back to me and I would print it out and they'd have a final copy. But that was integrated into the curriculum, and a lot of the things that they're doing are integrated now. A lot of the older grades are starting to get into teaching the kids how to do the PowerPoints, how to do reports, and they're learning it not as a separate subject, but this is part of their integration, which will be important because when they go to business, they're not going to say, well, show us how you can use the computer. They're going to say, I want to report on this. And so this is being integrated because that's just the way it's being used. And this actually probably would be more likely the way they're going to use it when they go out in the world.
So how much time do you think we're spending or not spending?
It depends on the day. I mean, we're not
that's
going
my
in there
point.
trying to teach the kids. I'm doing it as, it's like if you ask me how much time am I using trying to teach the kids how to use pencil and paper? You know, we use pencil and paper when it's necessary. When they're writing, that's when they're going to use it. It's a tool. And that's what technology in our classrooms is turning to. It's not so much we have to teach them how to use it, because honestly, a lot of them could teach us how to use it.
And I'm not really
Right.
talking about you. I'm talking about our teachers in general.
Right, and that's
You know.
why we want to get this more integrated into
Right.
the curriculum, and we're trying to do the technology day and do all this training so the teachers are so comfortable with it that they're using it. As long as they start using it, the students will start using it more. But that is our goal, to get it in
Because
there. In
a technology day is a little frightening for me. I would like to think that we have a technology hour every day.
No, Technology Day was a training for the teachers to
Right.
learn how to use
Right.
use the
And I would like to,
technology in
and I would like to think that we have systematized it such that all teachers are required to spend a given amount of time every day integrating some form
Right.
of technology into their lesson plan.
Right.
And you're saying, well, yes, we'd like to take the next step, and I'm suggesting the next step is to require that as a district, and just
Yes.
say, you must
Right.
spend at least an hour with some kind of integrated use
Right.
of technology. And
I'm seeing a little bit of a change. I know years ago, we actually had teachers that would not touch the computer and things like that. And that's kind of an old thing, because we have so many teachers now that are bugging me because they need this, they need different access, they need whatever help with this program. They're excited about using the technology. So having to require a certain amount of them using it, because a lot of the teachers I know are using it all the time, and it depends how the lesson is going and what they need for that lesson. And so it's on the basis of what they're teaching, and they're looking at it more as a tool than as, oh, I didn't get the computer to do this or that, but because every day the teachers are using the math book, and every day the teachers are using different things for the kids. So it's kind of being integrated as it is, but we don't have a requirement that they have to use it a certain amount of time.
well, thinking about the next step,
Mhm.
and thinking about it not being hit and miss, because there will be some teachers that are not technologically comfortable.
Right, and that has been our goal all the time, is to try to get all the teachers that comfortable. That's why we're doing the Technology Day. But we're also seeing a lot less of that, because a lot more of the teachers that are coming in now are computer savvy. They've been using it since they were in elementary school. And this isn't as much of an issue as it was, say, even 5 years ago. But that is our goal, is to get everyone so comfortable with it that they use it without thinking, just like we use the chalkboard. Or to be honest, I don't use the chalkboard anymore, but use the chalkboard or use, a pencil or whatever. It's a tool that you use all the time.
That's all, Mr.
Are there any
Chair.
other questions?
Okay, that concludes the presentation for tonight. If you have any further questions.
Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Zimmerman, thank you for putting this on the agenda. It's been very enlightening. Thank you, Superintendent Zimmerman.
And what we will do is, and I'll meet with Alex and the tech committee there. I know there's a couple things that, and I'm one of those people, Dr. Nash, he pointed at me in front of everybody, that I was one of those people when I taught years ago. Really, we didn't have that technology. Matter of fact, when we went to the tech conference, all I could think of is, where was this when I was teaching? That's what I kept on thinking. I mean, because I was actually overwhelmed with all the things that you could possibly do. It was amazing. And I can tell you, as Fernando and I go throughout the classrooms, what we see is I tend to see a lot of people who are using technology when I visit. There are some people from my era, my generation, that probably don't use as much as the ones that I think Kathy just mentioned, the ones that are now coming in who are now required to take computer classes. They didn't have that back in my day, but so we've had to learn in my generation, that we've had to learn along the way. My 7 and 9-year-old are extremely tech savvy, doing PowerPoint. My son's doing a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm just amazed, and I see that happening here too. So I think technology is moving forward, and I commend the tech department. We have a very solid staff, and the committee has a lot of passion for what they would like to do, and hopefully if we eventually go for a bond again, and we're talking about STEM and technology, we didn't talk about something that board member Suarez brought up a few months ago. It's still on my list about maybe piloting different programs and bringing things on, but it's also an economic issue right now, and it's really difficult to I was telling at the conference that we went to, I was saying, boy, I have a Christmas list, a list that I would like. And we joke around, says nothing that money can't fix, but in the meantime we'll continue to search for grants that Mr. Arana brought up just a year ago, that we don't have it now, but we're going to have to keep moving forward, finding alternatives to making it work for us. And I just wanted to say that, but Alex is doing a fantastic job, and we will come back with a couple of answers with a little more detail, because as I sat there and I listened, I'm trying to figure it out in my mind. I'm logical, and I think that I can, and I'm trying to figure out if I wanted to access and talk to a student tonight through our own system, how would I do that, and how is that controlled, and obviously we don't want that, so I guess I need to learn a little bit more in that area too.
Yeah, and I'd like to say I appreciate your feedback, and this is something I'm going to take back in the office and do my homework on some of the topics that you brought up, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you for your time.
The next item, actually I'm going to bring Fernando up first, but it's an achievement report. You'll see that further on the agenda. We're going to be setting some study sessions, but I wanted to give you sort of a preliminary look at how things are going. One of the goals that we've had in the past was a 5% increase, and what I'm finding out, and you'll find out this evening, is that there are some schools that are increasing 7, 8, 9%, some are increasing 2%, but if you average it, it isn't at 5%. And there'll be some things that we are deliberately excluding because we would like the individual schools to do that type of presentation when they do their reports during the study session that we're going to set. So we're going to sort of give you an idea as to what it looks like. Fernando will start, and then Angel will do her thing.
Good evening again. Angel is going to cover, we've met, we've got some a lot of information for you. She's going to cover district data for all our schools, but as Mr. Zimmerman mentioned, then we'll have the individual study sessions with the principals. We will also be meeting individually with the principals before those study sessions. Just briefly, to keep up with our expectations and as you work through the district goals, last year you received a memo around September informing you what were the expectations for us as the leadership, Mr. Zimmerman and I, and for the principals. And I just wanted to just bring it back again that memo that you received indicating you the expectations, the accountability, and what the principals needed to do at their respective sites, they also received that copy, and that was part of the setting goals last year and the expectations. This year, as we changed a little bit with the new grading and the new state accountability and compliance, some of it will kind of still be the same. We will just make the adjustments as to the accountability now starting this year. So again, we just wanted to bring it up to your attention that we are meeting with the principals again. We are doing walkthroughs, and we have documented the walkthroughs and the observations. That is usually done through my office. Each principal provides me the data, the logs of the times they go into the classrooms, the observations they do, the lesson plans, and all that credibility checklist is provided to me for my file. Something that's very positive is that we started this last year, and holding myself as well and Mr. Zimmerman accountable, because we also need to do the same at the sites. But it will be a very good transition using that process for the new principal administration evaluation tool that will be implemented soon. So that same information will be now into the system. It will be done by technology. But again, it's something that we prepared for this year, and now we'll just transition into the new form. Lastly, something that we tried to do this year is to make sure that we had the communication with the principals, and that the principals have full control of their sites, not just academic accountability, but personnel, understanding, working with parents, working with students, keeping their campuses clean inside and outside, and making sure that everything that happens at that school, that they are responsible for and aware of it. Holding ourselves responsible as well with the administration. Our emphasis has been to make sure that we are doing things the right way for the district, and we're not singling out individual programs or individual sites, but that we're consistent district-wide. And that comes, again, with our expectations, our goals that we are putting together. This year, all the principals received the evaluations. Mr. Zimmerman is focusing with the elementary principals. He's meeting with them individually, and I'm following up with the secondary principals. So just for your information, again, it is our goal to continue to do great things, is to do our best, making sure that everybody is accountable at the sites, and making sure that it starts with us here and that it shares back to the principals. Sometimes we don't see things the same way, but as long as we communicate and we are very transparent about what the expectations are, as you hold upon on us, then I think that that's going to continue because it's been successful. So I just wanted to add that, and I'm going to turn it over to Angel, which she will again give you a lot of data, a lot of information for you guys to understand. And then we're going back and meeting with the principals one-on-one, getting them ready for your study sessions that they will present as they did last year. So, Angel.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Zimmerman, Mr. President, members of the board, colleagues, and community members. As Fernando's indicated, let's get this on. Okay. As Fernando's indicated, I'm going to give you an overview of our letter grades, some information, some recollection from the past where we're at now, look at the district scores, the academic board goals. I took the liberty of providing you some information tonight as it pertains to 2 of the goals. And some academic achievement updates, some things that I just want to keep in the forefront of your mind in this time of change that we'll have over the next couple years. Starting off with the letter grades, I want to give you a quick review of what we talked about a few months ago when we were speculating, some pretty solid speculation, I think, based upon some things that we thought, changes that would be coming down the pike. So I want to review some of those with you. Some of the legislative changes, percent tested rules, all the way down to the formation of parallel models. One thing that did change, and I believe Dr. Verona mentioned it, is with the ESEA waiver, and between that passing for our state and changes to Arizona revised statutes, we're no longer now trying to meet the needs of many masters, trying to deal with the letter grades, the old legacy labels, as well as the AYP with the NCLB. So now we're just focused upon the letter grades, and that's been changed in the law to make that the case. The 95% tested rule, as we moved away with the waiver, the ESEA waiver from the AYP, one of the things that the state did go ahead and do is make that 95% part of the mandate for the A through F letter grades, so that everybody, we test all students, that's not a problem for us, but I do enjoy that now that's part of this legislation, part of the law here, so that everyone is held to that same measure. And what they've done, the consequences, we were unsure when I spoke to you last what those consequences would be. This is what the consequence was determined as, is that they really capped the letter grade that you can earn. And I found it very interesting when I was going through some of the data that they had posted on the state website to see just how many people kind of got nailed with that. So I'm glad to say we were not one of them, but happy to see that if you weren't testing everybody to get those higher test scores in some places, you did pay for it with your letter grade. The additional point, we talked that one of the scales isn't actually 1 to 100, so they were going to be adding in an additional point. They did make that one of the changes in the growth points. You get an extra point when they're adding things up. The AIMS-A. Typically, when we've looked at our data, and particularly with our accountability measures, only AIMS data is being utilized. One of the changes that did go into place was now for the percent passing, we look at the AIMS-A data as well. When I'm looking at all students, which I think is a positive change. ELL reclassification, this change didn't really impact us much. It did go through, they just lowered the threshold for the number of Ls to be looking at the 30% reclass rate. We don't have a problem making the reclass rate. Typically in our district, we're at about 44%. So this didn't have a big impact as far as we're concerned. This is just a reminder, the graphic that I showed you last year, showed you in the spring, that didn't change tremendously. Still, for the traditional schools, 50% is off of your, what they call the composite score, so that percent passing. And then what they refer to as some bonus points, looking at the percentage of ELLs that you reclassify using the Azella, looking at our graduation rate and our dropout rates. And then the other half is off that growth score, the growth of all students as well as the growth of our lower students. What they do is they add those up, then you get 0 to 100 for your percent passing aims, looking at reading and math for the grade levels served at your site, then 3 points each for ELL, grad rate, and dropout rates. So obviously there's a few more points available at the higher levels. The growth score, they're really looking at the growth of all students. That's 0 to 100, looking at the student growth percentiles that the state calculates, as well as the growth, the median percentile for those bottom students. They average those together, and that's how they come up with the points. So when you do this, you end up with something that looks very similar to this. This is more of an example of an elementary school or an elementary district. The points did not change. The scale that's being used, it's still 140 is the cutoff for A, 120 for B, 100 for C. So that's remained the same for traditional schools and our district. The alternative model, although perhaps Mr. Kramer will talk some about this as well, the model did pass, very similar to what we had talked about last spring. So the weighting changed just a bit. We weren't sure when I talked to you what they were going to do with the weighting. Similar, they still have the academic outcomes with the percent passing. That's weighted 30% here, and they put more of the weight for the alternative schools on the growth, looking at the growth of students and the improvement. So being at an alternative site, although I may not have moved to meets, if I move from falls far below to approaches, I should get something for that, and this model accommodates that special population that we have. Then they changed the graphic to a little better depict that idea of the 30%, that's the lightest blue, and then the 70%, your growth for all students, and then looking at all students and the growth they're making from their previous assessment. Let me skip to this. The grades the grade scale, we didn't have that at that point in time when I talked to you last. This is the grade scale now for the alternative schools. Just a little bit different than what you would see for the traditional schools. Most differently probably at the A level. This is how we shook out for our district letter grade, as I think it's been publicized and talked about at the Welcome Back rally. We're very pleased to say last year we missed it by a point where we were just 1 point shy at 139. This year we've made it with a total of 146, so we have a very solid A as a district. You can see that our points, our composite points were 84. We did what we needed to do with the percent passing with AIMS and AIMS-A. Picked up the bonus points. Our reclass rate's about 44%. Our grad rate, well above where we needed to be. We're at about 88% for the 3-year average there. And our dropout rate, we average about 1.5%, which is considerably lower than other districts. And then our growth points, we ended up with 61 plus that extra point is 62 for the total of the 146. So I think these were very good results. This is how the results shook out for our sites. Steve's mentioned this. I think this is a point of pride. With our 10 schools, we've improved from 4 schools receiving A's to 6, and you can look at the scores between you. This is how the district really got to the A. It's the work that was being done at all of the sites. So we have really, I think, just some great scores there. When I look at the district, we were about 75th, I think, when I was looking at traditional district scores across the state. You look at Carpenter, I think they were about 24th or 25th when you rank traditional schools in the state, so that was pretty high. You can see we moved out of the C at Mitchell, and our alternative for the first time rating is at a B, so I think the results were very good. And looking at our district scores. And what I did was kind of look at it two ways for you. I wanted to show you how we compare to the state and the county, and then a little bit later I'm going to give you kind of a historical look about how we compare to ourselves. This particular graph is depicting how our district, which is the bar on the far right of each set, compares to the county, which is the dark bar in the middle, and the state, which is at the far left of each of those sets. I have math on the left and reading on the right. So you can see compared to the state and the county, we were higher than both for third grade reading and math. For fourth grade, same setup. We've got the county there and the state. You can see that we did better than both state and county when we look at our reading and our math scores at the fourth grade level. When we look at fifth grade, our math percentage is moved up just a bit from the county and higher than the state. Reading, we're pretty much the same as the county, but we're higher than the state. And then you can see our writing percentile there is, the percent passing is higher than both the state and the county. Sixth grade, the comparison here is very nice as well. You can see for our math scores, we're quite a bit higher than the state and the county. Reading percentiles, we've got about 4 percentage points on the state, and the writing we're about all equal. We perform similarly. For the seventh grade, you can see the math, the reading, and the writing across the bottom. Again, math and very much larger percent passing than the state and ahead of the county. And then you can see the reading percentile as well, and the writing, where we're above where the state and the county are performing. Eighth grade, similar trend. The math scores are higher than the state and the county, and the reading percentages are about the same as the county, but a little bit higher than the state. For 10th grade, here we're a little bit lower in math than the state and the county. Reading, we're all about the same performance level, and writing, we're just a bit above where the county is performing. This is where I kind of set up a historical, because I think it's nice to kind of set it in context and know how you're doing against your peers in the state, but I think we all like to see just how we're doing against our own performance in the past. So what I've done here is graph for you for each of the grade levels in reading and math, how we've done for the last 3 years, from 2010 to 2012. So this is third grade, reading is on the left, math is on the right, and you can see a nice upward trend for the reading as well as for the math. For the fourth grade historical, we performed similarly to last year, but it's still an increase over where we were 3 years ago. For the fifth grade, these are the reading, writing, and math scores. You can see that we've made gains over the last 3 years in the area of reading. We're up to about 82% passing. Writing remains close to where it was, just a bit lower than last year. But if you remember, we were still higher when I compared with the state and the county. Frankly, we've done a lot of work there, but I think that writing test, they need to look at the design on some of the assessment and the way it's graded. For the math, we're up about where we were last year and definitely higher than we were back in 2010. Sixth grade, you can see overall the trend is more upward. We're bit lower than we were last year, but close. Writing, we're a bit lower than we were the previous year. Math is a very nice upward trend from where we were 3 years ago. For the seventh grade, the reading here, very nice over the last 3 years and the increases that have been made in the district. The writing is up just a bit, similar to where it was last year. And again, some very nice gains in math, going up more than 15 points from where we were 3 years ago. With the eighth grade reading, you'll see up a little bit from where it was over the last 2 years. And the math is where you really see a very nice gain from where we've been at the last 2 years, over 2010 and 2011, up to about 72% passing. For the 10th grade historical, you'll see similar to what you've seen at some of the other grade levels, some nice steady gains in the area of reading. Writing went up about 4 percentage points as well, and math were similar to where we were last year, but overall moving up. With the academic board goals, I wanted to take the opportunity, while I know you're considering your goals, and I'm here looking at data, to talk to you at least about the 2 goals that pertain to academic achievement. The first goal, if you recall, was that we would receive an A label as a district, and clearly that goal has been attained. We've moved from the B to an A, and we've increased from having 4 A schools to 6 A schools this year. For Goal 3 was that NUSD would increase the number of students who are meeting and exceeding in reading and math at each grade level by 5% at each grade. And I have a graphic that'll display this a little bit. This goal was not entirely met. We certainly had attained this goal in some areas, fell a little bit short in others, and then had other areas where we made gains. And this is where I wanted to give you a flavor of what that Goal 3 looks like. What I have here is the grade levels 3 through 10 down the left-hand side, math and reading for 2011 and 2012. The areas that I've highlighted in green show where we made the 5% gains that the board had for goal number 3. And you can see there are 4 of those. The yellow areas are those areas where we made gains, but they were about 1 to 3%. So nice, moving in the right direction, but not quite at the 5 that the goal was set. And the areas in pink, we decreased by 1 to 3%. So, and then the bottom just kind of summarizes it for a district where we're at with meets and exceeds. But I think we've certainly made progress towards this goal, but we'll continue to want to work towards that 5% if you choose to have that remain as a goal. As far as academic initiatives, there's a couple things that while we're talking about data, I just want to refresh your memory on the move on when reading. There's been some changes that the board should be aware of that will be taking place that just went into legislation this past spring. And then talk to you a little bit, since some of our accountability measures deal with the ELL and our reclassification rates, about some changes with that particular assessment as well. The move on when reading, if you remember, is the requirement in statute that a student will not be promoted from 3rd grade if they receive a falls far below in the reading portion of their Ames test or the successor test down the road, the park. In 2012, they went back and tweaked that particular piece of legislation just a little bit. It still remains the same, the idea that the student cannot be promoted if they fall far below on the Ames. But what they did was kind of limit a little bit more of the flexibility that was in the original piece of legislation as to what the parameters for the board promoting students might be. We have a webinar on this tomorrow where we'll be receiving some more information. But here, kind of in a nutshell, are the 3. It went from about 6 different, what they called good cause exemptions, down to these 3 now, that you would have the flexibility to promote a student if they fell far below. One is that the student has a disability and does not actually take the Ames. That would be our students who take the Ames A. 2 would be a student that has a disability and has previously been retained. This part I'll be particularly interested to hear on the webinar, because while this is some of the guidance that they have up on the website, if you look at the statute, that's not exactly what the statute says. It talks about IEP team agreement, not necessarily that the student had been retained before. So I think that one will be a very important one to iron out. And then the last one is that a student is an English language learner and has had less than 2 years of instruction, that if they fell far below, that there would still be an ability to promote them. We've already drafted the letter in English and Spanish to get ready to send out to parents, because one of the requirements with the statute is you must tell parents in K through 3 every year about this legislation as it comes closer to its date of implementation in the spring of 2014. So we have that ready to go. We've begun our DIBELS assessment, so that's one of the pieces that we use prior to Ames to help identify students that might be at risk for failure on the Ames. And we'll do additional notices when we completed our DIBELS testing to make sure that parents are aware that if their child is at risk for failure, here's the programs that we have in place, the interventions with the classroom teachers, the reading specialists, the coach, the tutorials, etc., to help support their student and have them be successful. The good news that I would mention as I transition over to Azella is this past year, we only had 11 students in the district that met that falls far below on the aims. So we're in a very good position that that's not a significant concern. But we still want to pay attention even to the few numbers that we have and make sure that they're hitting those higher levels, the approaches, the meets, exceeds. The Azella I'll mention because this is always something where we get those extra points, and in all honesty, we want to make sure that our ELLs are progressing well since we have about 21% of our students that are ELLs. So I just want to bring to your attention that the assessment is changing. We changed about 2 years ago and it's getting ready to change again. The Azella 2 will be retired this year. It'll only be used for new student testing, so students who are new to our state that have not taken the Azella before, to place them and determine their language proficiency. The Azella 3 will be introduced actually later this week, starting with the kinder placement test. And that's, the Azella 3 is more closely aligned to the new ELP standards, the English language proficiency standards. With that kinder test, one comment there is that there's a big change. It's only listening and speaking. In the past, the kinder assessment was listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Virtually no children pass that assessment because of the reading and writing piece. Frankly, I don't know if my own English-speaking kinder student would have been able to pass that as they're entering. The test was very hard. So this is probably a fairer assessment. But while we're unsure of what its impact may be on our students who are identified as ELs, it's almost certainly to lower that number, because I would expect that with only listening and speaking being targeted, more students should pass. As far as the remaining students are continuing ELLs, there'll be a new testing window for reassessment as part of this Azella 3. It's going to be January 14th through February 22nd. So it's a very short window. Typically, we used to test from about February 1st till the end of April. This is a tighter timeline and earlier assessment date. I'm not super pleased with it. We've drafted an email just to let OLS know of our concerns. There's obviously many fewer instructional days, only about 51 or 52 instructional days. And for an older child, well, that may not be as significant. If I'm a kinder or first grade student, that's going to probably have an impact on our reclass rate. So I want to make sure that you're aware of some of these changes. I think we're trying to follow them very closely and implement the new assessments as we need to. We're in the midst of participating in training ourselves. We just completed the kinder assessment training. You have to actually pass a test now. It's an online assessment to be able to administer that, and we're waiting to hear what the additional requirements for training may be for our testers with the 1st through 12th grade assessment. And this I thought I would just share with you as closing because I had shared it with you last year as well. This is their percentages for reclass at the different grade spans, K5, 6, 8, 9, 12, and the various assessments over the last few years that have been used to determine those reclassification rates. We're at about 44% for our district. While the state does not typically publish out those numbers, they're a little hard to find. It's a bit of a scavenger hunt, frankly. We usually run about 8% higher than the state for our reclassification rate. And I think that was all of the data that I had to share with you this evening. I know as the sites present, they'll share out more detailed information about their individual site scores, but this is to provide you with at least an overview of where we're at with our letter grades and that accountability measure, as well as just an overview of the district.
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
Angel, do you think that the statistics on the math letter grades for each of the, they all seem to have improvement in the math is a direct, correlates directly with the emphasis that was done in the 2011-2012 school year on math throughout the curriculum?
Yeah, and I think we're continuing to see that as a focus while we've had improvements. I don't think anyone's ever satisfied with where they're at. They want to have that percentage passing go up, have students move from meets to exceeds. So I think we've put a concerted focus there, and that'll continue to be the case.
And what do you see as the plan for improving the writing?
The writing, we're going to continue to hit the grammar. I'll be honest, I don't make any bones about this. The test is 60-40, 60% on the writing prompt and the way in which that's scored with a holistic score, and 40% on the multiple choice. I'd consider those scores to be a little bit more valid and objective, and we've made improvements. Still some room to go, to be sure, on that portion, but I think we've made improvements. The one that is more difficult is with that 60% on that writing prompt. I'm not thrilled about the move to the holistic scoring. I do think we saw the big drop when they went from the individual 6 traits to that, and you continue to see that. And I'm disappointed. I know how much work we've done, and I would expect at some point to see a gain there. And
That
so
was a change in the testing that occurred 2 years ago, right?
Exactly.
So that you have the high scoring in 2010, but 2011 and 2012, you just see a drop. And that's
Yes.
from that change in the way the test was being graded, correctly?
Yeah, the makeup of the test, the composition changed to include the multiple choice for that 40%, and then the way that they were grading the written piece for the 60 changed as well to more of a holistic scoring is what they call it. And I do think it's partly an issue with scoring, although to be sure, we have work to do and we'll continue to do it. But I think that you're not seeing that the state is flying away with us on those scores either. So it seems to be something that I'd have to believe all of us are working on, but still having a challenge with as well.
Thank you.
Any other board members, questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Johnson. I was noticing here as you're going through your presentation, and thank you for your analytical presentation of the data. It was very helpful. I just got confused here a little. I noticed that the score for Nogales High School is 125, their total points. They're 6 points away. They're on the bottom end of the B scale, and they're 6 points away from getting to a C. But then when I look at your attainment overall, I notice that the kids are doing well in the subject areas, but in math, as you go through the 3rd grade on, they seem to be scoring well. And the 8th grade in 2011 had 58 and jumped to 72%. And yet, when the kids come over to Nogales High School, why is it that with a 1-year gap, 9th grade to the 10th grade, we're barely scoring in 53 percentile, and you consider, if I'm interpreting your words correctly, a 52% to a 53% is doing good. I don't see it as doing good.
It's just a slight increase. I don't know. What I would tell you is I think there's been some work there. We have more work to do. I think the site will address this when they present, but I think there's also, when I look at their 125, I look at the work that's done in the reading, and that was good. I look at the work, the growth percentile there was good. We hit our grad rates, we hit our dropout rates. The math was an area of struggle, and I think as we address this year, they've been able to, we're more successful in finding candidates to fill in the position, whereas perhaps last year that was more of a challenge. I think you'll see the gains coming up in the percent passing, and I think you'll see the gains coming up in the growth percentiles, and you'll see that score go up.
So, I understand the other subjects, but I want to know what is your opinion on why. Do I interpret what you're saying, that you're saying that the high school is not scoring well in mathematics because we didn't have highly qualified teachers in mathematics in the classroom?
It's probably a number of things. It might be some challenges with staffing. Certainly, I think that when you look at it, you have 2 grades, you have 2 different content areas being tested there. It's both Algebra 1 and you have geometry. So that the standards are a little bit more challenging there as well, and I think they've made a lot of changes. We originally had students coming in more at the pre-algebra level, and now as the state has discontinued that as a math course, students are transitioning over into the algebra and the geometry so that they have the coursework that they need academically to take that assessment, whereas in the past when the pre-algebra was still allowed as a course while Ames was testing Algebra 1 and geometry, that was difficult. I think as we transition through the Common Core, our goal is to make students as we move up through the 8th grade be proficient through pre-algebra, and also have some students gaining some proficiency with Algebra 1 so that then you'll see that carry over. I think systematically we've talked about this at some of the presentations that I've been making at the sites and with some of the administrators, that we realized that some of the changes that the Common Core will bring with math and the instructional delivery, less of an emphasis, much less, frankly, on memorization, and more of an emphasis on a deep conceptual understanding, more modeling involved, more manipulative real-world application. I think you're going to see the payoff in that as well when you get to the high school level, as well as every level but below that.
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Johnson, systematically, all of the grades are doing well. But we have a drop at one grade level.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we look at the preparation for our students when we present them the diploma, especially in the STEM areas, and the STEM areas is where there are job opportunities. There's no great unemployment. On the contrary, in the STEM areas, there are vacancies and they're looking for people to fill those positions. I'm still not getting a clear answer, or if you don't have a clear answer, I'll wait to ask my question when the high school makes their presentation. I just find that 53%, it's not systematically, as you say, in comparison to all the other grades.
All I can tell you is it is a more challenging assessment. The standards are higher, there's more content there. I think we do have dealt with, as I've said, some difficulties in the recruitment of the math instructors, and I think the teacher matters. There's no overlooking that. A substitute is not the same, and I don't think it's necessarily through any fault of our own that sometimes we're unable to find those. You can't catch fish if there aren't any in the lake, so we need to bring those applicants in. And I think we're aware of the deficit, or we definitely want to do better. In the recruitment efforts in that area, I think, been much more successful this year, and I think we'll see gains there. When you look at the percent passing too, in some of the district scores, what you're also seeing is not just the cohort 10th grade that we've been accustomed to, but when you look at the letter grade, I'm also seeing students tiled in from some of the upper grades as well. So that changes things just a bit. But definitely we are aware it's an area that we need to work on, and we'll continue to do that.
Madam Chair, Superintendent Zimmerman, I just want to relay that I do have a great concern on this math score. And if we have to go find a lake that has a lot of fish in it, then I think it's your responsibility to find a lake that has more fish in it and not come and say that we have a low score because there's not enough fish in the lake. That just, to me, is not preparing our kids adequately. And we have an obligation to make sure.
Let me just make a quick comment on that. And this is one of these things I knew covering this that it would stimulate some questions, some concerns, because there's a few other ones in there that I could bring to light as well, that where I'm not overly pleased, but I can look at the scores that go back 5 years and we made a 20% gain, and then maybe we dropped 2-3%. But you know, I'm just going to just shoot straight and be brutally honest. There's a lot of variables that come into play. I'll tell you, being an HR person, one of the that always gets to me is I always had this philosophy: hire the best, forget the rest type of philosophy. Just get the very best you can get. And I'm not trying to minimize the folks that have been hired. I think we do our very best to try to get those math people, science people, special ed. It's an HR issue that I think that we're always trying to get the best people, but I think it does have a play. I think that you have to get superstars in there, especially for these content areas, and I think that is a piece as well. But I also want to just reaffirm what you were stating about, you know, how things have changed in terms of the focus on math and what we're moving forward to. But I do understand the concern because the score is low, and it is low, and I have no problem with any board member expressing their concern about some of the scores. That's what you're here for. And it isn't just math. There's a couple, we set a goal for 5%. And as you look through them, there are some sites that achieved much higher, some much lower. I do like the historical analysis because I believe that you should really compare yourselves to how you're progressing year to year versus, you know, what they're doing in all the other districts, and because that could be apples to oranges. We don't know who they have or what their focus is. But as we move towards the study sessions, we're going to talk about, as we did last year, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and things that we need to do better at. Math is one of them. And that score is low. And though I think that maybe some people don't want to hear that, it is what it is. It's the facts are there. If we're going to be data-driven, you don't like the data, then we have to do some things to address why those scores are where they are. The same things that we do as teachers. You didn't like the way your student scores were, what are you going to do about it? And whether it means getting out early and just hiring, or what it is in terms of what's going on with the just math as a core area, there's some concerns, and we have to get better at them.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Next one is Kathy's going to do this is something that was asked as a future agenda item a couple months ago, but it was the issue of STEMs and an update and how it relates to the whole situation with grants and things like that. So
I will be brief because I know we've been here, but it's ironic that the STEM grant that we're applying for addresses exactly what Mr. Arana and Dr. Verona were just talking about. I won't go through the Investing in Innovations federal grant. I talked about it last time, but I wanted to outline it for you in case you have any questions. At Dr. Verona's request, I did talk to the state lady, Mrs. Van Ingram Dunn, and she gave me some information. Basically, the grant that he was talking about provides advice. The people at Phoenix who are in technology would come down here, work with our teachers to help them integrate, which is part of that training that Dr. Verona was asking for. Okay. Now, the one that is very interesting just came out 5 or 6 days ago. When we were at the rally, Jaime Freddy Morletta took me backstage, and a few of us are standing around him besides myself, and he said the Arizona School Boards is coming out with a grant, and I want to make sure Nogales gets some of those dollars. And we got the proposal for that. Again, we need a 50% match. So, Mr. Arana, I did contact the produce company, and they said no. I did write to Unisource. They said most likely, but about 2,000 to 3,000. We did call Raytheon. They said we only give grants to Tucson, but I still have some irons in the fire to get this. And what it would do, Dr. Verona, it would fund 4 transition to algebra classes for 8th graders going into high school. We had this last year out of Title I, but we could take it out of the grant and therefore put more money into it. And it's for both sessions of summer school, it's transition to algebra. So when those 8th graders hit that 9th grade first day of class, they will already have had 2 sessions of summer school preparing them for algebra. If we don't get the grant, we will still fund it. We will find a way, but it will mean less money. The grant would also fund, Angel runs a math science camp. She organizes it for the district, and we have now 6 teachers. It's elementary. If the grant goes through, we'd be able to have 10 teachers, which would expand it. So we are working on our STEM. A couple of things that Mr. Arana brought out. Mr. Arana, when we write our technology grants, I must allocate 25% for professional development. So 75% can go into hardware. This year we're getting an additional rolling lab for the high school math, and we're getting an additional rolling laptop for Desert Shadows math. And then I will also have to match 25% of whatever we spend on PD. Are there any questions on what we're doing to enhance STEM and technology?
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Scott, I don't have a question, but I want to compliment you. Please keep up the work on seeing how we can improve achievement in the STEM area for our students.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Fernando's going to take this next area, Mr. President. I got to tell you, I was expecting some call to the public this evening regarding transportation, keeping in line with what we talked about during our study sessions, our budget study sessions, about being effective, efficient, dealing with the route management system. I paid close attention, especially the first few days of school, because I was wondering if it was more the exception than the rule, where we have a student who is supposed to ride on bus 5 in the morning and where they were going at the end of the day. And it just amazed me how we have had in the past a lot of students, because the parents are complaining, just at least coming to see us to some degree, probably more with the principals, and want to know why the students aren't able to ride bus 12, 18, whatever bus we want them to ride. And we've been trying to be very kind in our response, that we just cannot afford to have a transportation system where people can just take whatever bus whenever they want, because it equates to dollars. And I know that because the principals have had probably a few each. They've been doing a good job trying to get people to understand that we just can't operate a system like that. But Fernando's going to take I just wanted to open up, Fernando, just with that piece, because I was really expecting if there was going to be any call to the public over the next couple months, it would be because folks are saying, well, for years and years, that's what they said, for years and years, we've been doing this, and then you want to know why the expenses are high. We certainly could streamline the amount of transportation, and also making sure that the bus drivers are holding firm to what we're trying to do. And it goes hand in hand with Fernando's going to cover in terms of the route management system, because we're trying to do a very good job and be good stewards of that transportation dollar. So a few months from now, when we start talking about the budget and we get back on that discussion with transportation, that you feel comfortable with what we're doing, and that we're being very good stewards of that transportation dollar.
Thank you. I think that, and we're glad they weren't here tonight expressing their concerns. We've been buffering a lot of it through my office, and the principals have sent them directly to me. No, they've done a really good job at educating the parents. You asked for an efficient and effective transportation system, and I'm here to tell you that working together with citizens, we do have all the students on the database already at this time. The concerns that Mr. Zimmerman was talking about, and you as public servants and us as public servants, is looking at not just the effective and efficient, but also making sure that we are providing the service to those deserving students who's supposed to be boarding the buses. And we've been here for quite some time in the district. I myself have been here and seen that for the first time right now, we actually have a control system where the principals have a roster of every individual student with those addresses, the home addresses, that they know what students are boarding the bus and the students that should be boarding the bus. So hopefully we don't have the discrepancy that we had in the mornings, where we don't have too many students on the bus, and then in the afternoons we have too many students. So that has been handled accordingly. This is kind of in progress. We're still finding some glitches, but the most important thing is that for safety reasons and security reasons, this is the best thing that we have implemented at this time, because again, principals know who's boarding the bus, citizens knows. Liability-wise, citizens have made a commitment with a system in place, because the bus drivers also know who should be on the bus. There will be no more excuses. For example, on Friday afternoon, bus route so-and-so, on Friday we have 30 more students that I haven't seen before, which was the honest truth, is what was happening. And the other concern that we wanted to let you know, because you will probably also receive some calls from the parents, is that we no longer let students who do not have the address where they have to take the bus board the buses. We had a situation that we discussed, because we knew these questions were going to come, where parents said, my student, my son and daughter are going to be at this address. This is not my address, but I want the bus to drop them off at a certain address. Well, that's no longer being done, because that's not their official home address. And again, they're not here today because I think we've done our best to make sure that we inform the parents with plenty of time. We had our staff training here at the district, the parents coming over and asking why. We took the time to say why were the reasons. And again, I think it's something that we just need to understand that it's going to be questioned at this time, but obviously it's something that we needed and it's already in place. And I think that the way the consistency is right now, it's just going to get better. There's still some glitches. We have an elementary school with one parent that asked, as they get adjusted to this and change the addresses and do what they had to do, they asked for a time frame, just within a short time frame, to get this done so they could get the right person there and make sure that the student was taking the right bus. Yes, Ms. Harris.
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
Okay, so are we creating a hardship for, say, a working parent who their student, either they drop their student off at school in the morning and they need their student to go to their Nana's house
Right.
in the afternoon because they work until 6 o'clock?
Correct.
Are we creating a hardship for that parent?
When you have a system in place, a transportation system, yes, we do. We are doing that because we're going with the addresses that the students, the official addresses, in order to make sure that those students are on board and we don't have overcrowded buses. Before, we didn't have the system in place. So everyone, that's an example.
Well, you have a lot of situations where a parent drops their student off at school in
Correct.
the morning, and their student then takes the bus home in the afternoon.
Correct.
Because the parent is either working or whatever.
Correct.
And you also have, in this community especially, you have those parents that are working and that may have, you're going to be dropping off students at their home address when there's nobody home to watch over them. And that creates a hardship for this community. I don't see how that's a benefit to the community.
Again, it's not, it is what it is, because in order for us to provide transportation, we are following the policy that we did not have in place. Now we are following it. We talked about putting the system in place, but in order for this system to be accurate, this is the only thing we can do. If we go back to how it was, the concerns that you had prior to the spring and talking about transportation, and when we had the study session, you will continue to have that. So this is something to answer to the concerns that you had as a board, to make sure that we had the students that were supposed to be on the bus, the students, for example, that have to board the bus because they're bus students. So that's what we did. The other option is to go back and not have the system in place and go back and meet those challenges that you just explained so we can service the entire community. But when you do that, you don't have control as to who's boarding the buses. So we were only acting upon what was asked. We asked the principals to do the same. And at this point, today, I think the parents understood what we were doing. That's why they weren't here. But if we do open it up, Mrs. Suarez, we're just reporting what we have in place. And I think that that's, first of all, for safety reasons and security reasons. Because we can't hold the principals accountable if at the end of the day, anybody that wants to go on the bus will go on the bus. And if we make the exception for a situation like that, we will have to make the exception for everybody, which is your call. Just reporting what the system is and where it's at and how it will function. If we go the other way, then we will have to discontinue what we have in place and what we worked on in order to accommodate those needs. A lot of our employees were in the same situation. A lot of our employees asked, we explained to them. But again, if we're going to provide that service, then we won't open it up just for our employees. We'll open it up for everyone.
Let me interject.
Well, maybe, I mean, did you look at I understand you want to be able to know how many kids are going to be on the bus at any one time coming from any one area. I can understand that.
Sure.
In the morning, you're not going to have as many students on the bus as you do in the afternoons because lots of parents like to drop their kids off on their own, okay? But I think we're doing a disservice to the community if we know that we have a community that, in a lot of cases, parents are working and they're going to be concerned because they either can't leave work to pick up their child, they're depending on the bus service that they pay for with their taxes to bring their student either home or to some place where they know their student is going to be safe. In the past, weren't the schools, I believe you had to, if your student was going to take the bus, a different bus from what they were normally taking to go home or from where they were coming from, they had to get a written permission slip that they submitted to the principal or the administrator's office in each of the schools asking permission to ride on a different bus. Isn't that no longer going to be an option for any parent or employee who has students that need to be at a different place?
That's why this was done, in order for us to be able to manage this. But again, if we do change it, what you're saying and referring to, not everybody did that. Or at the end of the day, for example, at the higher level schools, the middle schools and the high school, even though the example you use where the parents in the morning drop them off, those students can still board the bus in the afternoon because they are supposed to ride the bus. The parents do have that choice still. But what happened was that we had a lot of students that were not accounted for, and they were just boarding the buses because, for example, they wanted to be drop off here on Friday or Thursday, and they weren't really students that should board the bus. So in order for us to make sure that we had the correct number of students for safety reasons again, and boarding those buses when they were supposed to, where we can hold them accountable, this is the system that we put in place. Again, we're open to whatever direction you want to go on. I'm just reporting what the management system was because you've asked of us to do that. And if we have this, then we can't really accommodate those students that you're saying. Or for example, open enrollment students, by policy in place, we don't provide transportation for those students, and that has been in the past as well. The only exception is that some accommodations were made from families coming from Rio Rico where students were able to board the bus here in town for particular reasons that you're saying. But again, we have a number of students who then will fill up the buses, and then the students that are supposed to be riding the buses, then that's where the issues start with discipline, with too many kids on the bus, and so forth. So if we do that, what you're asking, then we will really have to change it again, because we'll have the students who are supposed to be officially on the bus with the addresses, and the students who we're making exceptions for the reasons you mentioned, and then other open enrollment students who, because all the parents will have different reasons why, because of the grandparent, because I need a babysitter, and so forth. So yes, we were accommodating as best as we could, but as we continue to see the changes, sometimes we no longer can do that and still keep control of it. And this was something also that came from the bus, from the transportation, as to the bus drivers having different students that they couldn't really hold responsible for, because one day somewhere, then some other day they had different students. It's like a class. Your roster, and this is your route, this is what your population is. And I don't know, I mean, I don't have the answers. I'm just reporting that we have the system in place that was asked of, and this is the only way that we can manage it. I don't know, Mr. Arana, you had asked also prior to this to make sure that we did have something like this in place. So, I don't know.
I'm not happy with this.
Yeah,
I'm not happy.
I'll take the other side, because I think I was one of the ones pushing for the other side. We can't turn our school busing system into a public transportation arrangement so that, kids are boarding the bus whenever they want to go wherever they want at any time, and we have no control over that whatsoever. I think that creates a humongous liability issue as well, because how can you really deal with permission slips, in the sense that, like you say, you have hundreds of students boarding the buses on a Thursday or Friday to go to someone's house, and
right.
It just gets to a point where you can't service the students that are supposed to be on that bus, not the ones that want to hitch a ride to get across town. So I recognize that we're working parents, and there are situations where that's going to create an issue for parents that are working, but like parents that have worked forever, we have to make arrangements. I don't think we can expect to turn our bus routes into a city delivery system. I mean, it's just, I think you've got the right idea. You know where the students live, you know where they're supposed to go. If the parents need them to go somewhere else, they need to make arrangements for that, not send our buses somewhere else. We can't afford to do that anymore, in my opinion.
And a lot we were able to do that, and specifically what you were talking about, Suarez, is because it was done and it was possible to do it. But now we're getting to the point where we can no longer provide that service if we are looking at liability and we are looking at savings and we are looking to be a little bit more effective. And again, we can look at other ways. We talked about.
My concern is with the elementary schools.
Yes, ma'am.
And the younger children.
Sure.
Being dropped off maybe at a bus stop where there's no one there to pick them up, and where a parent may not be able to make arrangements, or wasn't able to make arrangements, or thought they made arrangements, and the individual who was supposed to pick up that child forgets. Then that child is just stranded.
Right.
That's my concern. The older grades, I can understand. You don't want the chaos or the disruption that can happen with high school students,
Right.
especially because they're a little bit more uncontrollable. Junior high is, I don't know, about the same. But the elementary schools is where I think where I find that this would be troublesome for the community.
And like I said, I know Mr. Zimmerman and myself and the principals kind of met with individual parents. They have made the arrangements because now it's been presented. But again, it's nothing that it's set. It is what it is, and we understand because we're just transitioning to something that we've never done before.
So you've had 3 days of school and lots of complaints.
Not lots of complaints. Actually, I think we had more of concerns, to be honest with you, from employees. And I know that the principals have dealt with some of the teachers and so forth because the kids were being bused directly to where they work and so forth. So I had a few parents. We met with them. We explained to them. And some of them understood and said it was an inconvenience, but they understood and they were going to make those accommodations. So again, it's something that it's the only way it's going to work. As I said, we have a few thousand students already within the system. We are also trusting that those addresses are correct. We're not pinpointing or anything like that, but we have to trust that those parents are giving us the correct information. And again, just because the only way this works is if we really put a system of transportation that is affordable and that is provided for that particular student who needs to board the bus.
Ms. Suarez,
I would like to say no parent in the community has made any comment to me on this issue at all. Just listening to the presentation.
Correct.
Now
I
wait
could
till
see
tomorrow
where
you'll
the-
get it. Tomorrow you will, though. Let me just say, we're going to keep an eye on this. See, we're trying to be mindful to the board's wishes and all the things that we've discussed during the budget study session and when we had citizens in here. Also, after the citizen study session, the administrative team met with citizens as a team during a retreat, and we talked about some things. One thing, once again, Mr. Arana said something towards the end of his comment, we can't afford it anymore. It has become a rite of passage, once again, that we have some folks who take advantage of it. But we can't continue to afford these high transportation costs and keep doing business the way that we do it with all the other things that we have on our plate and concerns that we have. It isn't that we're trying to be insensitive to those parents. But there is responsibilities that we have and responsibilities they have as a parent. And I'm not trying to minimize your concerns, or I just can tell you that we're keeping an eye on it for a couple of reasons. If we started losing a lot of students, I'm going to do an analysis and figure out how much am I losing in transportation and how much am I losing in ADM. I'll do the math and we'll figure it out at that time. But we have had some concerns None here this evening at the podium, but what we did expect over the next month that we would get our share of concerned parents.
Well, I think there's a difference between that student that boards the bus in the morning or may get dropped off by a parent in the morning, but needs to get dropped off at a babysitter's or caretaker's home in the afternoon. That person, that child, is going to ride the bus every single day to go to that address. And so there's a difference between that child and the child that's just boarding the bus so that he can go to so-and-so's piñata after school. That's not a
And that's what's hard to
usual
maintain, though, because
situation.
those things used to happen. And the best way is going back then and looking at those special situations where...
Talking to
Correct.
the parent or doing a survey of the parents that have their
Correct.
children riding the bus to determine whether or not their child, for safety reasons or for caretaking reasons, needs to be dropped off at a different
Correct.
address. But that address would be a consistent address that would be an everyday thing, so that you can have the ability to count how many students are going to be on that particular bus route. That may be a way to find that information, would be to survey the parents of those bus students to determine whether or not that's something that they need for their child. Because in reality, the bus service is to get the child to school and to get the child
Correct.
home safely, whether that home be in a caretaker's environment or their direct home address.
Correct. Another note is we did add for the first time a route with no cost to the district or additional funding to the district, a bus for PBHS for the alternative high school. And I think, Mr. Kramer, that should be starting soon and doing okay with just providing that service, because that was something that Mr. Kramer talked to us about and something to look into. So we're hoping that provides that transportation. There was also, during the study session, and something to go back to what you're saying, Dr. Arona had mentioned maybe those open enrollment students living outside of the district in Rio Rico. Again, if we look at that and look at the expense, if it's feasible, or if we're gaining those students, kind of balance that and look at providing that transportation for all grade levels from that distance. But again, if we are providing that, then we'll have the questions here in-house. Well, you're providing that service outside, but not in-house. So again, this is something that we will continue to look at. Lastly, Dr. Varona had also, and Mr. Arana had asked regarding the fuel. I just wanted to follow up. That was two months ago regarding the fuel, and we are getting the charging the district what they are paying for. I know Ms. Soto's not here, but just for your information as well, we are monitoring those fuel reports on a monthly basis, and we will continue to make sure that that is the case. In fact, they promised that fuel was going to be a little bit less for us and that we were going to have a savings. That it depends, it goes up and down, but according to their report, we will see a savings in fuel this year. So I just wanted to follow up with that. And any other questions, Mr. Zimmerman? That's what we got.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Para, on the issue that we talked about first, right now, I concur with Mr. Arana. On the issue of taking the buses out to Rio Rico and bringing them in, it would be no different, because we're taking them from point A to point B, and we're returning them back to point A, as what we're doing for our students here. Point A to B, and from B back to A. Several months ago, Mr. Para, I also asked for a report on this issue on what happened to the route from Royal Road to Desert Shadows.
I asked the bus company that, and they said that the routes that they have in place are the routes that have been in existence. There was one route they used to have in Meadow Hills. They used to deliver or take some students to a private school in that area. That is no longer existing. That was another service that came to our attention that we didn't know that was happening, so they were dropping them off at this particular school in that area. But that's no longer happening, and when I went back and asked them, they said if there was a particular, because they were here the last time as well when you asked that, but they couldn't pinpoint that one particular route other than what I have just mentioned.
Well, the last time Mr. Brenner was here, he said that the students were on the bus for 40 minutes from Royal Road to get to Desert Shadows. Why are we sending those students to Desert Shadows where they should be going to Carpenter Middle School and less time on the bus?
Yeah, well, that's something that we can look at, and if it's you're referring to because they're choosing that school and going there, or because you think that they should be at the other school to save the time from traveling or going on the bus.
Well, I would think that the kids would not want to get on the bus when it's dark in the wintertime and arrive there when the sun is up. But please don't do it now. If those kids are going to Desert Shadows for this year, I don't know why this wasn't addressed in the summer during the planning when we were giving this report. Not now, because we're causing a disruption now.
Right.
This should have been dealt with before. But anyway, that was a concern. I guess my concern wasn't addressed.
Okay. Anything else? We're good? Okay, thank you.
Ready to move on?
Yeah.
Next item is we would like to set 2 study sessions, preferably early September, even though September 10th is our regular meeting. 2 study sessions, this is what we did last year, 5 schools each evening. I'd like to host one of them at A.J. Mitchell, and I would like to host the other one at Wade Carpenter Middle School. And we're looking at, particularly on a Monday evening, as Mr. Parra had made mention during his part of the presentation with the achievement presentation, that we are meeting with the administrators to talk about lots of things, about their scores, their data, things that we're pleased with, not pleased. But this is one of those presentations that we're hoping, we're directing the administration, just that everything is not perfect in Nogales and all of our schools. We've got a lot of good things going on. But I think it's once again, it's an opportunity for the administrators to talk about, well, what did we do last year? Because they stood up here, told you things that they wanted to do. Apparently some of those things have happened, and it's been very good for that individual school. But it would be an opportune time to talk about things that maybe there are some reasons, and I think that would be an appropriate place. It would be study sessions. It's all discussion. But we're thinking, we know we have a meeting on September 10th, and I was probably just going to have Mary call to see what would work for you. But we'd like to have 2 study sessions, and we don't want to do them here in August because we're still, the administrators say, stay away from August. We're just trying to stay away from, we're still dealing with a couple staffing issues. We're still dealing with solidifying what our enrollment numbers are looking like. There's a lot of things going on right now, but we'd like to have them both in September. So last year we took 2 hours each evening and knocked them all out at once. We generally give about 30 minutes per each school, and we are hoping that you would be okay with that. And if there's any night that absolutely doesn't work, it appears that Monday usually works, but I think it would be good for you to hear some of the assessments that the principals are giving us in terms of why things are the way they are at their particular school.
Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Zimmerman, as long as there are Mondays, I'm pretty much on Mondays is a good day for me. And the other concern that I have, Superintendent Zimmerman, is I want to make sure that the public sees the meeting. How is the public going to see the meeting? Is it going to be a delayed telecast? It's not going to be a live telecast? I just want to make sure that the public, this is very important, the evaluations, this is the data that we use most importantly to evaluate the performance of the superintendent of schools. And I want to make sure that the public has access to all of this. I like your idea of going out to the different sites to go out there for the presentations. I just want to make sure that the public will be able to see
the access.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
comments on that?
So what we'll do is we'll telephone you, and I will acknowledge those concerns and send an email. We'll do that. Okay.
All right, item 6, consent agenda. Approval of routine warrants, purchase orders, travel claims, employee leave and transfer requests, and employee resignations. Any matter on the consent agenda will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed as regular agenda items upon the request of any board meeting member. A, approval of July 9, 2012 budget hearing and regular board meeting minutes and July 30th, 2012 special meeting minutes. B, ratification of expense payroll vouchers. C, ratification of student activities, auxiliary operations vouchers. D, approval acceptance of donation from A.J. Mitchell, PTC. E, request for approval to test NHS at-risk concussion sports, athletes utilizing the Impact Baseline Testing Program. F, request for approval for administrative internship for Tim Colgate. Administrator mentor will be Judith Mendoza Jimenez, principal at Nogales High School. G, personnel agenda summary. H, addenda for school year 2012-2013.
Mr. Chairman, I would,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I want to go first.
Go ahead.
You always go first.
They've been
Not always.
calling on you first.
They've
They've been calling on you first, Charlotte.
I would like to set aside for discussion item D and item E.
Item B and D.
Item D is
D.
in David and E is in Edward for discussion.
All right. Marcy?
Mr. Chairman, I had item D as in David and E as in Edward and also A as in Abel.
Any other requests?
I make a motion to accept the agenda, or the consent agenda, setting aside A, D, and E for discussion as requested.
Second.
Any discussion on those items?
No discussion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the July 9, 2012 budget hearing and regular board meeting minutes and July 30th, 2012 special meeting minutes.
Here a second.
I hear second.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, on the regular meeting of July the 9th on number 5, Roman numeral 5, the A, it just says down there on the third paragraph, first sentence, I would just like to change the word tax to valuation. It's the sentence that says, had been a 15% decrease in the assessed tax, it should be the assessed valuation.
Okay. That sounds,
And it has been changed.
that sounds doable. Okay. Any more discussion? On item A, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the acceptance of donation from A.J. Mitchell School PTC for $10,157.75. PTC no longer active at A.J. Mitchell. Money was turned over to the school.
I second.
Discussion?
I just wanted to maybe have an explanation as to why there's no longer a PTC parent-teacher committee at A.J. Mitchell. Can anyone speak to that?
Yes, we'll bring up Dollar Alcaraz. We'll come to the podium.
Hi, good evening. So our PTC is basically starting over this year. We had a very small PTC last year, and some of those students have transitioned to Wade Carpenter or have moved to other areas and are no longer at our school. So what was our PTC last year?
So the parents that were supervising or being a part of that group, their children have moved on to a different school? Is
That's
that what you're
correct.
saying? Oh, okay.
And they were in charge of those funds. So they closed that bank account and presented me with a cashier's check. And under the direction of Carlos Soto, we're putting that into our student accounts.
Are you sending out solicitations to parents of A.J. Mitchell to determine whether or not there's any interest in forming a new PTC? Because it's important for there to be a PTC.
Absolutely. In July, we had a PTC meeting to try to transition from our old former PTC into a new PTC, and we actually had a really great turnout. I think we had about 13 parents come during that summer meeting. Unfortunately, none of them were interested in becoming an officer or taking control of those funds.
Okay, thank you. I hope that you get more interest and that you get someone who will want to participate. That's something that the community is sometimes not always willing to do.
Any other questions for Dr. Alcaraz?
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Alcaraz, I have the same concerns as Mrs. Suarez. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the request to test NHS at-risk concussion sports, football, soccer, basketball, baseball, softball athletes utilizing the impact baseline testing program.
Second?
Any discussion?
Yeah, I was wondering why for impact concussion testing, is there anyone who can speak to that? And then a couple of questions after that.
Right on cue, isn't he?
Yes.
Right on cue. I'm right here. If you don't mind, I'd like to pass out some handouts here to the board. Okay, what you're receiving are slides from a PowerPoint that I do have available if you prefer me to put up the PowerPoint, but I think I can answer the questions pretty succinctly here with you right now. A lot of questions, what is the impact testing? Impact testing is a baseline concussion testing program. Okay, and what it does, and what it is it's an immediate post-concussion assessment and cognitive testing. That's what impact stands for. Okay, it's a 20-minute test. There's a pre-test for all the athletes, and they come in and they sit down at the computer and they'll take a test, and the test will involve reaction times and cognitive thinking skills. No, high order learning skills, but reaction times and memory. Okay, so that if a concussion occurs, they can retest them in a post-test and be assessed by a physician, and that physician can help determine whether or not that individual is ready to return to play or not. Okay, which is one of the biggest concerns, are multiple concussions occurring in our young athletes or in any athletes. And as we become more aware of concussions, that is one of the biggest things that they say is multiple concussions are where we run into problems. Returning to play too early is what causes multiple concussions. If we can get the students to sit out the recommended amount of time, then it's better. Okay, so by doing this and by having these tests available, we're able to see what their thinking skills were before, and the reasoning and their cognitive thinking before they're injured, and then after they're injured, and they can be tested multiple times. One of the questions I know that was going to be, or they could come up, is what is this going to cost us? Because we're always talking about budget now. Interestingly enough, we had started this when we put this on the agenda a few weeks ago. We were on a free program for a year with the Impact group. But Barrow Neurological Institute of Phoenix has now, in conjunction with the AA, has now made it possible for all schools in Arizona to be tested for free. So all of our students can be tested for free. And according to the individual in charge there at the Neurological Institute that I talked to on Friday, when I got the email, they're looking at this as long-term, as something that they will continue to do for years and years and years as part of their neurological group to help out the AIA athletes.
Okay, you mentioned here that this testing is for football, soccer, basketball, baseball, softball. Are we also including tennis, which is a sport you can get hit in the head with? Cheerleading, because we already had 2 issues last year with cheerleaders getting trampled and stompled and dropped.
Yes, one thing.
you know?
One thing that we looked at, and like I said, this the whole thing was originally presented, and if you look at the Impact test site and what Impact does test, it does have at-risk sports, and cheerleading is one of the at-risk sports, as you'll see here on the slide. Okay, so football, wrestling, soccer, baseball, softball, and cheerleading are the sports that we carry that are considered by the Impact test group as being at-risk groups. So in order for us to be able to get the testing prior to the Bioneurological Institute coming in on Friday and making that announcement, we were only going to be able to have 300 tests available to us. So the at-risk groups were going to be the ones that were going to have to be tested first, and then if we run out of licenses, at least we have those at-risk groups done. But now that the Neurological Institute has come in, they are saying that we can test all of our students if we would like to do so. So
I would think we would want to test all of our athletes.
I agree.
And not exclude any one group, only because you just never know.
Right, and I would agree with you on that. And now that the the Neurological Institute has come in and said that it will be very possible. Now these tests will be administered by our athletic trainer that we have there at the high school, Mr. Felix Blanco. He'll be administering all the tests. And if we do have any post-concussion tests that need to take place, he'll work in conjunction with the physician to help read the tests. There are workshops and webinars available for the physician, and we'll be sending our athletic trainer to a study session on this coming Saturday. So he'll be heading out there to go get a little more training. And we have a physician here in town who has agreed to help us out also. And we have several physicians in Tucson that have neurological backgrounds that have gone in conjunction with the Barrow Neurological Institute and the AIA to help assess post-concussion tests.
Thank you, Mr. Colby.
Mr. Judge.
Are you including middle school too?
At this point, we're not including middle school.
Why not? Why not?
Well, because the AIA does not have middle school. Because it's the Barrow. Well, I mean, I can ask them.
Contact sport too,
No, I can definitely ask them, and I think that's a good, honest question, and I can call the Barrow Neurological Institute and see if they can do that.
Why not?
Well, Mr. Morales, I think that right now we just got the email on Friday that the Neurological Institute was going to go ahead and test all high school students. They have not said that they would test middle school students.
Find out if he tests middle schools too.
I'll definitely give them a call and I'll find out if they can do that. But being that it's in conjunction with the AIA has no governance over the middle schools.
Mr. Chairman, Coach Colgate, do I understand correctly then by your presentation that this has been in consultation and meets the approval of the athletic trainer at Nogales High School?
Yes, it has. I've spoken with Mr. Blanco, and he's actually very excited about it. His group, the Southern Athletic Trainers Association, talked at this at length in their spring meetings, and it is something that he is willing and excited to do.
Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Zimmerman, Coach Colgate, does a student writing down his date of birth, is that identifiable data that'll violate the FERPA Act?
All information that is recorded is kept very confidential and is taken with the same context that we would have with any of our information at the high school and with any medical information that is at a medical office.
Coach Colgate, identification of a student by his date of birth, is that a violation of the FERPA Act?
You know what, Dr. Verona, I honestly can't answer you if that is a violation, but I do know that that information will not be leaked out or given out to anybody without outside of our system.
Superintendent Zimmerman, I'm willing to go ahead and support this, but I would like for you to look into making sure that any of this data cannot be a violation of the FERPA Act and can come back to identify a student. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Colgate, you're not the first high school in southern Arizona to implement this test, correct?
Correct. Several other schools have implemented this.
I know it's been done in other schools in Tucson, and I'm sure it's being done by many up in Maricopa County, and it's a program that's just being instituted as far as what little I know about it all across the nation with the severity of head injuries. So I'm sure the question that you ask has been asked before, and I'm just assuming, we know what that leads to, but I'm assuming that everything's all well and good with what you're concerned about.
Right, and on all of our records at the high school regarding any of our athletic records, academic records, all of that is kept in strict confidentiality.
I understand what you're saying. I understand.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one more question?
Sure.
The other thing is, about a year ago, the state of Arizona passed a law that we were supposed to have a policy on concussions. I asked for it to be put on the agenda, and it never was put on the agenda. Do we have the policy that meets the state statutes on concussions?
We do have one in place with the business office, or I'm sorry, with the assistant superintendent's office when people when they want to use our facilities. We do have one down there.
No, but this is a school board policy.
No, we do not at this time.
Okay, but that was a law that was passed last year that was we were supposed to have a policy as of last year. So if you, Superintendent Zimmerman, if you could look into that, please. I don't need to dwell on it, but.
I'll definitely look into it too,
Because
sir.
of what you're talking about and what the chairman alluded to of the problems with concussions, they passed a law that we were supposed to have a policy on concussions adopted this same time last year. And I have yet to see it.
Okay, I will look into that too, sir.
I do know the athletic department has a policy on concussions.
We do have a policy on concussions.
Because I had a son who suffered one, so, and it definitely was held out of at least one game, if not more, due to that policy, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Nope.
Hey, Tim, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7, action item. Approval of 2012-2013 district goals.
Well, I'm just going to read this for the good of the group because we've had a lot of discussion, not just with the governing board at the last meeting, but also with the leadership team. But I just want to capture and then make a couple comments. The administration is recommending the same goals as 2011-12. The administration believes that maintaining a District A rating, providing a safe learning environment, increasing achievement scores, recruiting and maintaining a highly effective staff, and building partnerships with parents is essential. Some members of the board have expressed a desire to include goals related to classroom size and living within the financial limits of the budget. Even though these desired goals didn't make our list, the administration would like to reassure the members that we will continue to monitor the budget daily, which is something that we've been doing over the last 4 years, and live within the parameters set by the board. The administration also has a strong desire to keep classroom sizes manageable by staying within the student-teacher ratio guidelines set by the governing board goals that have been at least in place for 4 years. And you know, there's been a couple things. I'll tell you that I personally have some goals. I would like all of our schools to be A schools, not just the district having an A rating, but obviously it would be nice to show a report card where everybody's achieving an A. And to me, that's very important. I would like to, that's bragging rights, people. When you have all A's down the entire sheet, that's bragging rights, and not too many schools can say that. But that's one of the goals that I think is important. We have this discussion earlier in the evening to talk about meeting, exceeding, and reading and math, and we've discussed that quite a bit, and we set that at 5%, even though Angel has articulated that in some areas we have exceeded that significantly, in some areas we have not. But as it stands right now, I would like to keep that at 5%. We may fall short, but at least we're setting the bar high. Some schools achieving 5% is extremely significant, where setting 5% at other schools may not be highly significant. But this was a district goal, so we sit and we think that, you know, all the things that we're trying to do, whether it's making sure that we're holding everyone accountable, that we just continue to do that. And I've seen something here in Nogales over the last few years, even as it relates to Prop 301, is when we don't make something, we change it. We change it. If math was not achieved and we didn't meet the Prop 301, we changed the goals, and we either sort of decreased it and try to make it attainable. And to me, I don't think that's the way that we should do business. I think that, you know, we're going to keep the bar high to where people have to work hard and continue to work hard. And just because we got an A rating as a district and we're showing some improvement, we're not there.
That's right. I concur.
We're not there. And I'm really pleased about, and I told the admin, I'm really pleased with our grades and to some degree our scores. But we all know that at every single site, which you will see during the study sessions, that there is work to do. And just because we have an A doesn't mean that you got it all going on the way that you want. And I think we all would agree to that. So we still continue believing that we have to improve our partnerships. One thing I've always loved about Nogales since I've been here, and I go to events, and I think the last one I went to this past spring, I sat next to Mr. Arana, and it seems like everywhere I go, the parent participation is very important here. It's very it's so significant. At least maybe it's because in places I have been, we've had significance in terms of people showing up, but they show up, and I think it's a tribute to parents who want to be involved in their child's education. And I think that we have to just continue welcoming them, and we all know that sometimes there's parents that come in and oh, here we go. But for the most part, I think involving the parents is very important, and I think it isn't just the teachers and the administration and the leadership that's made our achievement go up over the last 4 years. The parents have been involved too, and we have to continue to build those relationships. So that's the reason why we decided to keep that. Highly effective staff. At the next board meeting, you're going to see a report. I stayed away from putting it on there this evening, but a report in terms of what MIDA has to go through in terms of helping principals get a pool of qualified applicants to get the very best that we can possibly get. And if we have to go to other places to get them, then so be it. But our task is really hiring the best. And that is still, to me, a very we're not doing the best job, I think, that we can in terms of getting the best. And I understand the market. I understand math majors and bio majors that are going into pre-med and engineering and maybe don't want to go into education. But there are still people out there who embrace learning and want to teach. And we just have to do a better job. So with all of those, even though I think we're on the right track, we're not there. And with that being said, I would keep the goals at the way they are, but I do want to reassure the board that the financial situation is in the forefront of our minds, and making sure that the teachers have their resources and that they don't have 35, 40 kids in the classroom, especially at the primary grades. And at the next meeting, it won't just be an HR report, it'll also be an enrollment update to sort of show what we're doing and how it fits into what I think that the governing board wants to do. So that's my spiel. We're recommending the same goals.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion based on the recommendation of the superintendent to accept the 5 goals as presented of last year to this year.
Second?
I second.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Zimmerman, as you said, data-driven. Mrs. Johnson made a very good presentation on goal
Who's
1.
Mrs. Johnson? Oh, because she keeps saying, I'm not Mrs. Johnson.
Canto.
Oh, Canto.
You're all right, Martin. Don't worry about it.
Mrs. Johnson made an excellent job on the data for goal 1 and goal 3. Now, goal 2, goal 4, and goal 5. I was just disappointed that right now we didn't have data because Superintendent Zimmerman, just as one individual board member, just one person, this is the data that I use to help me fill out your evaluation on what you're doing. And I need to have that to make sure to respond to that in a fair and impartial manner, the job that you're doing to lead the district. So I would just appreciate to have some data, especially when on goal number 4, Mrs. Johnson alluded to that we're having a problem in math at the high school because we're not getting highly qualified teachers and we're having substitutes in there and we're dipping down academically. So the only thing I'm asking for, please present us with the data.
We
so I can
actually
use
have
it.
that for September. If the board wishes, they can table this and you can talk about those. But we looked at the agenda. We thought there were some things that needed to be covered this evening as we move forward into the new year. But we certainly have it down for September. But if you want to wait, because it makes you feel comfortable knowing why we're coming up with these, that would be fine too.
Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Zimmer, I don't want to wait. I think that your administrators and our teachers need to know what our goals are now.
Okay.
And we can take care of it, but at least for next time around that we have all of the data, by June or July, so we can have some time, spend some time with some analytical thought on how we're interpreting the data and where we're going to go the following year. But that's all. I'd rather go on your recommendation, but I just want to express my concern is not overweighed by your administrators and our teachers having a clear path of what the board's goals are. And I still feel that, the STEM is very important, but I'm sure you'll incorporate it there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more discussion?
Oh, I just want to say that I think the goals are fine. I'm sorry I missed that session. I tried to give a little bit of input by email. Be careful though, Steve. All schools in A, we may have to give you one of those pre-concussion tests.
Yeah, I said believe a District A rating, just my own personal goal, which I would like is certainly, we could have changed that goal and said every school will have an A, but I'm also thinking that, last year we went from 4 schools to 6, and even if we went to 8, that would be significant, but it wouldn't have met the goal. If this was a year forward, we'd be saying, well, we didn't make our goal, however, we got 8 schools. But I think that the principals are all working hard with that in mind, that, everybody wants an A. And they'll just have to work hard this next year to do that, so.
Just think about that pre-test.
Yeah, I know.
I wish everyone an A too.
Thank you.
If no more discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, executive session, don't think we need one. Item 10, governing board future requests. Charlotte?
My brain is dead right now.
Spectrum?
Post-concussion.
Frank?
Post-concussion right now.
Marcy?
Mr. Chairman, the Arizona School Board Association put out a 2013 political agenda priorities for all school boards to fill out. It's due at the end of the month. It lists the top 10 legislative action proposals, which I think is extremely important. This is a big function of our school board, any school board, to submit to the Arizona School Board Association what our top 10 legislative action proposals are. So I submit my 10 to the secretary here, and if they want to put for final approval of the board, but I think it's extremely important that Arizona School Boards Association understand what our interests are as a board. And also, I would like to review that policy, Superintendent Zimmerman, on the years given to employees that come from outside the district here. Mr. Chairman, thank you, and it was a very good meeting, Mr. Chairman. You did a very good job.
I'd like to
Is
make a
there a
motion.
second on that?
About the good job? Or the
Yeah,
adjournment?
yeah, good job.
I'll
go with the
Make a
adjournment.
motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.